Hello and welcome to Benno and Hamflett in Your House, a podcast reviewing WWE's iconic New Generation B shows in order from the bust back to the boom. I'm Michael Hamflett.
And I'm Benno. I'm Michael. It is one of those shows today where, you know yourself as a podcaster, there's definitely times where, you have to do your homework, and it's a little bit like literally doing your homework when you were at school and you try and get your way through it. But I don't think I've ever been more excited for a record today than to talk about some of the more positive things we got to talk about at the end. There's some heavy stuff in there as well, but what a fucking time to talk some 1997 WWF today, mate.
It's funny, isn't it? Like probably the very first conversations we had, not just about doing this podcast, but about the business in general, would have been like a shared love of this era of WWF, of 1997 as a year in wrestling, of all that kind of things. And then you start a podcast. Yeah, in life. And you start a podcast that like begins in the timeline in 1995. And you almost sort of, I don't know, the brain does this thing where it makes you forget that that thing is on the horizon. And every one of these that we've covered, whenever like 1997 has got its claws in, I feel like it's something we go back to. It's like, I knew there was this, but then I didn't count on this. And I didn't there's that great gag, I think it's in The Simpsons, where they're going to climb Mount Springfield. And then wow, look how high it is. And then the clouds clear and it's like 3 times the size of what the first. That's sort of like reviewing 1997, isn't it? But it's like, it's a mountain you're very happy to climb. We'll plant, a bit like Darby Allin with Everest, we'll plant our Benno and Hamflett flag in Mount 1997 sooner or later.
I feel like our mountain is like every time we go, and that's the end, and the very last time we'll ever get to talk about Ahmed Johnson, and then you look at like the No Way Out card, go, oh no, there's another one coming, it's coming soon. Like it's like the amount of stuff that like, I always say, I feel like I've got a memory of 1997 imprinted, and then we go through these run sheets of housekeeping, and it's like, fucking hell. And like we keep saying, there's no wonder these housekeepings have become mammoth jobs. We can't even catch up on each other's lives anymore, off air or on air. I didn't even get a chance in the last housekeeping to ask you how you were faring after eating all those chicken nuggets, It's just like, no, we need to stuff the business right into it. There's too much Steve to talk. There's too much Brett. There's too much Shawn. There's too much Bulldog. But enough about the Fab Four. We'll get to them in a little while. But it's insane, mate. It really is.
That is, this is now long in the distance, obviously. But yes, thank you for giving me one last chance to plug for anybody that hasn't watched it. If you've ever wondered, I don't mind some of this crack that this random guy that Benno's got on this Fed podcast. I'll check out the What Culture stuff. Why not go look at the SmackDown review podcast that is labeled in red and yellow with the golden arches instead of the blue M to watch me devour 70 McDonald's chicken nuggets as we review SmackDown. I think I'd said arrogantly that I could do 100, and where I feel good was that I knew when I was beat. I would compare it to when you've drank to such the extent where like that last drink or that last shot or whatever is about there. I'm pointing at my throat for the audio listeners, and that one more drink is it's gonna come straight back out. I'd eaten to that point, and there was some sort of satisfaction there because I think I'd said this to you off air. I've never been to an all-you-can-eat buffet where I've eaten all I could eat. And then doing Macca's to Smackers, I ate all I could eat. I now know that 70 is my ceiling and about 50 is my joy zone. Like we've all had 20 and wanted 20 more, but now I know that I've had that second 20 and there's maybe still space for 10. Now I know that what my sort of, it's a nice thing to know about yourself. When you sort of, we're in our 40s now. These are the sort of information, the bits of information you need to sort of know about yourself. It's like when doctors ask for a health check, it's like, well, sir, how many nuggets do you think you could eat comfortably? And I was like, well, doc, around 50 to 55. It was a worthwhile bit of personal science to know that,
Scientific experiments is how you should put it. The problem is, as we get older, that number's going to creep down a little bit, unfortunately, as it does with all of us. But yeah, I said it last month. I would never be more proud of you, mate. And I was saying it on, obviously, last month we did our 5-to-1 tier list over on the grapple side, and we went through fast food stuff. And I was telling the lads about the time that I used to be able to, I don't think I could anymore at this old age, demolish 2 large Domino's pizzas. That's my claim to fame. So maybe I'll do one at some point. Matty will make us review a Raw or something like that, and I'll sit there in the background eating a Domino's. But I don't think I could top you there, mate, with the nuggets. But like I said, I've never been more proud of you, and I was even maybe it was a good promotion tool for McDonald's. It made me. made me go to the local McDonald's in Vietnam as well. So it worked out from both sides, you know.
are you owed residuals from Domino's Pizza? Because didn't they come up with the double decadence, which was basically that double based pizza? So for those people that wanted a little bit extra pizza for your pizza, like was that actually your invention all along?
I feel like they were looking at it and go, well, it's this bloke in Liverpool who keeps up, weirdly, he orders cheeseless pizzas, so that's a bit weird from the start, but he keeps ordering 2 pizzas. Yeah, we need to get onto that and we need to sort it out. I wonder if that's what's coming, but I feel like they probably had to take that off the menu because it was just like, oh my God, it's like people are dying afterwards. Like, it's the same with you with the nuggets, mate. And I said I did it. I said I ate them. I never said it felt good afterwards. That's always the thing, but I know you were on the treadmill after the show doing your homework for another housekeeping here as well. So I respect it, mate. It's part of what fuels us, mate. And it's what brings us together.
That's it, man. If you're lucky enough in your life to be able to turn a treadmill into a fed mill, I don't think there's any eating challenge you can't take on by then walking it off in front of like 1997.
That's what we're promoting, not junk food, yeah? Keep yourself in good health by gorging on ridiculous food and then watching some 1997 WWF while you're on a treadmill. I feel like it's a good lifestyle plan for everyone.
Even in 2026, right? Just as long as you do it on a Tuesday, then there's going to be a nice, cozy Raw waiting for you on Netflix. It's the perfect way to spend like that day of the week that nobody really likes. I feel like I've solved it, you know. It was daft. It was not something I'll try again anytime soon. But again, like it preps me. You know what we're both like. Any sort of opportunity we'll get to like gorge on an American scale. It just feels like something that we should never do on like home turf. So it felt like that kind of specific treat. Heartily recommended it. And if for those that do check in with What Culture from time to time, Sige, my colleague and friend, is extremely competitive, and he's got it in his head now that he wants to do 71 of something. So I'm just going to gradually sort of like prod with that over the next few months. Dumplings is the current one. I don't care what it is. I want to see him. He's a bit smaller in stature to me, and I don't think he's half as greedy, but I want to see 71 of what does he fancy trying. I'm game to see how it works out.
71 hipster coffees or something like that, I could imagine with our Sige. Maybe he could pull that out, but I know. Like I say, never been more proud of you, mate. Like I say, on the Grapple show last month, as well throw the plug in. We did. We said McDonald's was the 3-star of American fast food change, but it wasn't a slight. It's a bit like pretty much it's the WB, isn't it, of American fast food establishments. It's always been there. You can mostly rely on it. It's probably never going to go away. And yeah, 3 stars pretty much works, I feel like, for the modern environment.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. I love that tier list. Hearty recommendation from me, by the way. Do not do what I did, which is try and get yourself an early night where you've closed the door on food, on the kitchen, on everything, and then get about 15 minutes to that and have basically had like 6 different menu suggestions that get you on justeat.com and thinking, you know what, I can wrap this day up with a little bit of this or a little bit of this. Before I've even had a chance to press order, you've moved on to something else I fancy instead. I'll recommend the episode. I just can't recommend the right time of day to eat it. Maybe after eating 70 nuggets, because that's the only time you wouldn't want to get food after it, yeah?
Oh, it may be what I eat 70 anyway, but no, been great getting the feedback for that, and obviously I've been great seeing the feedback come in for this season 2 of Benno and Hamflett. Keep your comments coming, keep your 5-star match reviews coming. Definitely loving seeing them coming through as we go through with this labour of love that we're doing. But yeah, let us know in the comments here. What are you eating while you're watching us? Is it 70 nuggets? Is it 2 large Domino's pizzas? Keep us informed. But yeah, that will always a great accompaniment to the amazing stuff we've got to talk about today, mate.
Yeah, we have loved obviously going headfirst into season 2. The changes notwithstanding, some good, you know, the likes of a brand new gimmick that WWE is about to introduce next month. Some bad, the departure of Todd Pettengill, but ultimately like this sort of like this bold new era that is on the horizon for WWE has been very fascinating to cover, and we're going to get into that ahead of obviously covering Bad Blood in Your House on the next edition of the podcast. But for this housekeeping, there was kind of really only one place to start. There's a match that we get all the build to and then don't get the match on the pay-per-view. I think people, if you listen to this podcast, probably know what I'm talking about. We are entering, very unfortunately and very tragically, the last days of Brian Pillman. He features super prominently on his last month of television in WWE, kind of more than he has done as that secondary figure to the Hart Foundation all summer long. So we'll take a quick look back at what he actually did, what he got up to on television, and then we'll obviously talk about the events that unfolded the day of the Bad Blood pay-per-view. Because when we picked up from Ground Zero, of course, he had won the rights to Terry Runnels for 30 days per his victory over Goldust in the Indecent Proposal match at Ground Zero. And to that point, the first Raw following Ground Zero, we got something called Brian Pillman's XXX Files. It was Brian Pillman positioned in a hotel room, presumably nude under the bed sheets, that glint in his eye, that devilish grin across his face. And he speaks down the lens to Goldust, who's in the ring, half face painted because obviously half of him is missing over this month. He says, "Hi, Dustin. Welcome to Brian Pillman's XXX Files, day one. I've been on the road 10 years, two-time All-American, world-class athlete, NFL. But look at me. I'm exhausted. I thought she was spunky, but she's a machine. She's an animal. I'm pretty sure, because there's a beep, he just says, she fucks awful good. But I can't be sure of it because they beep across all of it. His towel falls away. He's smoking a cigar. His boxers are on. And he says, nothing comes between me and my Calvins, except your wife, Terry." Big pop in the arena, obviously, you know. They're playing all the grim Jerry Lawler jokes for like just the right amount of end of the pier comedy. I think like it's Pillman's I guess ability to thread the needle, as he did so often between like the fact and the fiction of pro wrestling. And he's kind of applied it here to this, like obviously sort of disgusting, you know, lascivious storyline.
Yeah.
He does show the hotel room. There's just like shit everywhere based on, you know, ostensibly the incredibly rough sex they've been having all over the room up to that moment. And then we cut back to the ring where obviously at this point Goldust is looking absolutely devastated. Before we get to the next XXX Files, because this is obviously a series that he runs on Raw, we actually get Pillman in the first match of the Intercontinental title tournament. It's a tournament that Sergeant Slaughter has ordered due to Steve Austin's need to surrender that title. More on that a little bit later. And this kind of makes real all the promise of the stipulation. Pillman drags Marlena out. She's now dressed all in black rather than the gold dress. She's got a nose ring. The camera catches her just saying how much she misses her baby and how much she misses her husband. She's got like her hair slicked back. She looks really, really sad. I think it's particularly affecting when Brian Pillman's like weird Hitchcockian psycho music hits that like minor key and the cameras are on Marlena. I think it like hits quite effectively by accident or design.
Yeah.
Like it captures like how trapped and sad she is. She tries to leave and then like via the aisle, and Brian Pillman just like walks her back to the opposite side, like shouts at her, tells her to stay right there. That's by the announce table. And at that moment, because they're on the outside, Goldust runs in and just dives for Brian Pillman, tries to batter him. Marlena gets a big smile across her face. She's absolutely buzzing. So Brian just bails out the ring, drags her out. But because obviously Goldust had attacked Brian Pillman, Dude Love's been disqualified and Pillman advances through in the tournament to the next round. We'll kind of get on that, kind of how that progresses. But like, what were your first thoughts on, I guess, like the first look of not just like Pillman and Marlena together, but the presentation of the XXX Files?
Very different in it because it's 1997. You got to remind yourself, even sex was different in 1997. I believe from growing up on Sex Cetera and Eurotrash and stuff like that. I just assume that's how things were back then. But like even down to like jokes aside, like it being in like the hotel room setup and stuff like that. Like if that was happening on, let's just all be honest, probably TNA wrestling television at this point. I don't think WWE or AEW would be putting anything even like a segment like this on telly. Or maybe WWE would with a much more PG sheen to it. But like if it happened today, like, you know, someone would have the camera phone out, it'd be easy to do. Like I was literally watching this as much as I want to talk about the on-screen thing. I was just thinking about the logistics. I was like, well, it's not hard. It's not easy to get a camcorder, is it? Like, and it'll be a fucking gigantic, massive thing like your dad would have in the 90s when he'd be doing like, you know, the family videos that you'd make the rest of the family watch once a year, something like that. My dad used to rent one from his work to do, so I remember distinctly what the big physical camera looked like. How did that work? Did the Fed send him one? Did they have to go to a local shop and rent one? Is there an entire production screen behind it? Like I imagine it's not. I can't imagine you can get many stagehands or anybody like that in the room. It's probably just Pillman and Marlena, but it's like it's genuinely impressive how they did it. I was even thinking about like, well, when it was done, if this is a hotel room that's like, you know, off somewhere else, did Pillman have to like mail it or something like that? Like literally take the physical tape and send it to Stamford so it can go to the production officers? Like it's not easy to put stuff like this together, I don't think, and they do a really good job of it. And it literally is. You like camcorder footage. It does look scuzzy, and Pillman is like, you know, again, you don't get another take. He's on the bed with a towel over him, and it doesn't look like he's got much underneath, but he manages to kind of keep himself covered and stuff like that as well. But it's very fitting to his character too, like the scuzzy setting and the, you know, you're half watching it because I'm it's funny, like you say there about Terry and how like sympathetic she comes across in those moments. I'm kind of watching it for the double bluff too, because as we know, the tragedy didn't happen. It seems likely that was the direction they were going. She was going to turn and be with him. So is she, at what moment is she actually terrified, and at what moment is she's actually in on the bit and she's playing along and trying to work like those bits out of it? Is she the production team? Is she the one behind the camera in this bedroom as well? So like, there's a lot of layers to it there as well, and. If it sounds wacky, if people haven't watched it back, and I'm going to try and throw some playlist links in the descriptions now to the episode, so check them out if you haven't ever seen them before. But like, yeah, it's for a scuzzy thing. Pillman pulls it off well. There are other wrestlers who really couldn't have pulled this off, Goldust included, but he's very good at like drawing that line between it being entertaining. A little bit, like some of it probably shouldn't be entertaining, but it's 1997, so certain things kind of go with kind of what he says in the content. But again, because he's such a strong character, because he's so charismatic, it all kind of works for him, and it's like perfect for 1997 WWF. Vince Russo's backstage loving this, getting his teeth right into it. I'm sure Cornette's in a corner fuming with Jim Ross, but like, yeah, there's like a lot to be said about this. Like, it is actually really good quality if you can get aside like the things that obviously wouldn't play 30 years later now.
Tell you what, you've happened upon a fantastic potential reveal as well, because as we'll get to in a minute, Terry only physically features in one of the XXX Files. What a cool thing it would have been if they'd filmed her holding the camera, and when the reveal does happen, they could play that footage back. That would have been such a cool like reveal, wouldn't it, to continue on the bit and be like, this is at this point she was into it. And who do you think was filming me, Dustin? That's the you can imagine those sort of lines coming out, can't you? Now, I'll give you that, Benno. That's why you're one of the best in the business. I had never considered the admin that it would have taken Brian Pillman to get these. A very, very worthy point. When you were talking, I was thinking about, when Joey in Friends takes that little handy cam with the flip screen, the sharp view cam that was off the Man United shirt away kits. Maybe Brian had invested in one of them because he wanted these, he wanted these tapes as keepsakes, presumably. They weren't just ones that were getting sent off the Titan Tower.
Exactly.
So maybe that was what it
converted somewhere. Probably had to go into a shop. Like, I used to think, when you start like take Polaroids on a night out with your mates, and it'd be like almost embarrassing and given to the shop to get them developed. You're like, I hope they don't look, because there's a couple on there where it's like, my mates took a funny photo of his arse or something like that. Imagine what they thought in the shop. What the fuck is this? We should call the police. What's going on?
No, it's well, and to that point, actually, episode 2 of the XXX Files is Pillman this time really close up to the camera, noticing that after a hard night's work, Terry needs to take a hot shower. Somebody's in the shower. We never confirmed if that's Terry or not, but it's on, and you can see the sort of silhouette of a body. And Pillman, he says it's Terry, but we don't know for definite, has wrote, "I love you" in the steam in the mirror. And he again tells Dustin that it's going to be a hard time getting to sleep. To your point, that could be when the fix was in. We will sadly never know. It takes us to the September 22nd edition of Raw. This was the one from Madison Square Garden, and it was set to be Brian Pillman versus Owen Hart in the Intercontinental title tournament. Pillman drags Marlena out again. It's noted on commentary that it's day 16. She's yet again in like the black leather or the pleather. This time he's like leading around by a dog collar. He's got his finger through the loop around her neck. The announcers then reveal that Goldust and Marlena are going to renew their vows the night after Bad Blood, which, again, we'll get to. And Pillman explains basically that during some particularly rough sex in the bath, he's got an arm injury, and that's why it's now in it's in not a sling, but it's in one of those sort of like arm supports, basically one of them blue medical ones. And he's going to have to forfeit so that Owen can go into the title match at Bad Blood. He's devastated as much as all the fans in New York City are, but what are you going to do? Commissioner Slaughter hits the ring, saying, "That's funny. Like, the doctors haven't told me about the broken arm." Pillman's very obviously stalling and faking. Owen Hart's trying to kind of keep this smooth and make sure that the plan works. And then Slaughter, considering what a complete dick he's about to be in every other storyline, does maybe the coolest thing he ever does as the commissioner. He says, "All right." He throws the microphone to Brian Pillman and goes, "Think fast, mate." And Pillman just instinctively catches it, and Slaughter catches him out. And you're like, "Not bad, Sarge. Not bad." So that's the ruse completely fucked. And then Slaughter basically threatens them with, if they don't have the match, they're both going to be fired. So they agree that they have no choice but to have the match. What follows is more of an angle than match, but it's an absolute beauty. It's obviously Brian Pillman's last Raw match, but what a piece of work this is. They have this just wonderful, like, faux technical wrestling match where neither they grab holds without actually grabbing a hold. They kind of very delicately lock up. They back into the corner and they both do the arms up. They couldn't be both wanting to be fairer than the other. Like the two biggest rotten bastard cheats are trying to be as nice as possible. We come back from the break and it turns out that during the break, Marlena hit Owen Hart with her purse. Now, that stirs up the shit between Owen and Pillman, and they end up fighting for real. And Marlena's got this devilish grin on her face, but yet again, to your point, could that have been one of the little tells along the way that she's actually now working with Brian? The commentators frame it as she's just looking to get Brian Pillman in trouble. This is great, and it works. You end up getting a bit of a brawl between Pillman and Owen, but yet again, Goldust hits the ring. He's absolutely raging. Crucially, he strikes Owen in the face first just to get him out of the way. Then he goes for Pillman. He chases Pillman off. Pillman drags Marlena out. They go up the aisle. Goldust disappears through the curtain as well, which of course leaves Owen completely free to celebrate making it to the final of the IC tournament in the least dignified way possible. A lot of stuff happens after that, but we will get to that in a second section of this podcast. Because Brian Pillman's XXX Files episode 3 wraps up our build here. Vince McMahon on commentary says this is a disturbing piece of video supplied by Brian Pillman that may not be suitable for all the family. And it takes us back to another hotel room, another dingy, dimly lit place where Brian Pillman is once again in bed. This time, Terry is actually next to him in the bed. She's looking horrified to be there, but I keep going back to it. I think you might have nailed this. The more this has gone on, the more she seems, I don't know, cooperative, as if they're trying to tell Goldust in plain sight. You have not spotted what we're trying to tell you here. He says he's beat, he's whipped, he's bushed. Marlena and him will not turn up at Bad Blood to fight Dude Love unless Goldust is handcuffed to the ring posts. He'll have to bring the cuffs because they're busy using theirs. Pillman has basically been told he has to face Dude Love at Bad Blood. I think the story was going to be something. This is never really fleshed out on Raw, at least, but I think there was something to do with the fact that like Goldust would get a match straight afterwards if Dude Love won. But that's why he was cuffed there to begin with, because it was going to take up around 45 minutes of the pay-per-view time, which we'll get to in the pay-per-view review itself. And that's the completion of the build before we move on.
The build, I thought in talking about this, there's the really sad bit to come. Like, it would be quite downbeat to talk about, but it's really good, this stuff. Like, even rewinding back to like obviously the Owen and Pillman match there on the Raw. Like, that is like, me and you, we're not high on the, Owen Hart, what a great ribber. Same with Davey. It's like, it all seemed a bit mean-spirited, to be honest with you. Hear some of those stories back, but like, it is kind of like the Owen Hart house show match you'd hear legend of, where he'd purposely have a bad match just to kind of make himself laugh or pop the boy that he was working with, and like the crowd would just be sat there. That's basically what they do, isn't it? It's like near falls off snapmares and stuff like that. It's really, and again, it's clearly the prototype for what I was going to say. Triple H and Shawn Michaels are clearly watching that backstage going, maybe we could do something with that in a couple of months. But like, that's because I had that question. I watched the other bits of the playlist first. I was like, hang on, Owen and Pillman, I can't remember how did they get around that match with them being Heart Foundation, at least associated with Pillman. It was amazing to get to find it out. And to your point, like that last XXX file, which again is just very 1997 music and graphics and all of it together. It does feel that way. It does feel a little bit more like Terry's in on the bit, or maybe the real life Terry's, just because you can kind of see her leaning away from Pillman, but you can tell she's half about to laugh and she's trying to stop herself and stay in character for the moment. You could read that a billion different ways. Like, for something that felt like a really throwaway stipulation to like the last pay-per-view, like it actually delivered some really compelling telly. And obviously there's way bigger tragedies that that come of this, but like one minor one is that we didn't get to see this play out and get to see the reveal of it all and which direction they go. It's so 1997 WWF.
Yeah, it's all tinged obviously with tremendous sadness. It does take us to, and we wanted to kind of cover this in a bit of detail here, because so much of it is sort of around Bad Blood, but very little takes place on Bad Blood itself. And even kind of when they try and acknowledge it, there's a certain, I'm willing to give them a pass on the night. There's an inadvertent flippancy to the way that his death is discussed on the night of the pay-per-view. But as we'll kind of find out now, you can somewhat see the position that various people and stakeholders were in here. On the Bad Blood pre-show, kind of in between, Doc Hendricks and Sonny doing the usual carnival barking and the interviewing and the like, Vince McMahon appears just in front of the kind of the mesh set that is used for the interviews for Bad Blood that would kind of become more familiar as the kind of Raw is War one in the years to come. He's in his tuxedo, looking out, ready to go to commentary. And he just says, as of approximately 5 p.m. today, and bear in mind this announcement's only going out sort of between 6 and 7. As of 5 p.m. today, tragically, we in the WWF were notified that Brian Pillman has passed away. He was last with the WWF at a house show. He doesn't say house show, obviously, in St. Paul, Minnesota. And was found dead in the hotel in Bloomington, Minnesota. He mentions that they have no more information other than to tell you that Brian Pillman is dead and that we offer our condolences to the Pillman family. We're going to go into like some of the more specific details. There's some good reporting from obviously Brian's friend Dave Meltzer and some sort of like information that came out at the time and then stuff that came out in the aftermath. But I suppose like before we go into the details of that, like what are your memories of this as a piece of news, of this? Like, did you have Bad Blood recorded and then you were kind of watching it back the next day and hearing the bits on commentary? Was it when you got to Raw on Friday night and it was a tribute to him? Like what are your memories of, I guess, of this? Like now this would be a bombshell that would kind of be like within our news space for 24, 48, however many hours, depending on the wrestler. Back then, things didn't travel necessarily in the same way, did they?
No, like I remember like when Benoit died, like I spent like 48 hours on, died is probably underselling it, but you know what I mean? When that happened, like spending 48 hours on the work computer, like in the office, like just read the UK fan forum for 2 days and almost getting sacked over it. Like different world, isn't it? Compared to like, I think back when Owen died and it was my mum, coming in the morning and waking me up to tell me that it had happened and rushing downstairs, not in a bad way, just putting the tape on to go, what the fuck has happened here possibly? Pillman, it's a little less coloured than that. Like I've got a vague recollection, and it felt that way watching the free-for-all, of maybe not believing it, because it's horrible to say, but it would really fit the story, and so maybe not exactly, but it would be the type of thing Pillman would do. Obviously, looking back at it now, it's very clearly not that, but like, I think I vaguely remember thinking that is this part of, and I imagine there were a lot of fans, and because again, the way the fans react to it in the arena is interesting, and people at home probably watching it going, type of thing they're doing here in 1997, what's going on? And it does eventually, become clear. Maybe it's the fact that Vince is quite guarded in the way he says it that it's hard to read into. But I think that was my initial reaction, and it not really fully sinking in, like you say, until actually getting to see the Raw on the Friday and going, oh my God, this is real. All of the roster are on the stage, and it's very much not part of the story. And obviously, the interview that we're going to get into as well all happens as well. But I think it was in stages. Probably being young is probably part of it as well. I felt a little bit more capable of accepting what it was when it was Owen Hart. But yeah, this one was just, again, in keeping with the character. It does kind of fit in too, doesn't it? So yeah, it was more denial than anything.
Yeah, it's a good point. That it's very much in keeping with so much of how we wanted to be perceived by the wrestling world over that sort of like 95 to 97.
I bet people on message boards actually thinking that, back on AOL and whatever they were using back then, like all of that stuff. They were probably thinking, oh, here's Pillman working the sheets again. Here's Pillman doing another one of those. I bet there were multiple phone calls where in real life where people didn't believe it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that because when you look back at the Observer archive, and obviously Meltzer was as integral as anybody to helping some of Pillman's stuff work. If you read Crazy Like a Fox, the great book by Brian Pillman, the great book on Brian Pillman, like you kind of learn the amount of times that like Brian and Dave were in touch, and the kind of things that like Meltzer was kind of acting, I guess, in that kind of consultant role that he sometimes has with wrestlers, whether it be official or otherwise. And he mentions actually in his Observer that like Pillman was one of the few people he'd actually considered a friend, and he was devastated when he found out he died. There would be kind of no work in the sheets through Dave, at least. He would go on to write like a long obituary, which I won't parrot today, but you can find that online. It's one of Dave's fantastic obituaries. They're always excellent. But it was reported like immediately in the aftermath as a heart attack in his sleep. There was significant thought that prescription drugs were involved, but the autopsy actually attributed it to a previously undetected heart condition, which is actually what led to the death of his father as well. Wow. So, the fact that the way he was living obviously wasn't contributing to particularly healthy sort of journey through life at that point for Brian Pillman, but it was actually that heart condition that caused him to pass away. The actual story of how it came to be on this pre-show and how Vince McMahon was kind of in the position of having to tell the world before the pay-per-view went on the air at that time of night, was one of them just only in wrestling stories. Bret the Hitman Hart, per his contract, was allowed to get there late to buildings. It was just one of those things that people knew about Bret. He would kind of get there quite close to showtime rather than the early call time. And it had gotten to 5 o'clock and Bret Hart was getting on to arriving, or like maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And people just assumed, because Brian Pillman wasn't there, the two of them had traveled together. So it was only when Bret Hart arrived alone that there was sort of suspicion of what is actually going on. Jim Cornette talks about it in the Dark Side of the Ring documentary, that he was the one tasked with calling the hotel, and he's speaking to a member of staff at the hotel, and they themselves are not sure. And obviously then, you know, Brian's body is tragically discovered. They come back to sort of answer the call, Jim Cornette, and initially he thinks like Brian's behind the receptionist, and it's that one big rib. It's Brian Pillman being Brian Pillman again. But obviously, sadly, this wasn't the case. What sort of like, I don't know, dark is maybe the word, but just sort of, if you look at the comments around Pillman from this time, there's a lot of sentiment of it was a matter of time. There's a few sort of specific anecdotes and stories. There's stories of Pillman at the house show the night before, but frequently at this point, like being seen just in the fetal position in the locker room, like either side of his matches, just being in such intense pain, and then going out there and working. You know, there was various drink and certain drug paraphernalia by his body. Kind of didn't make any secret of the amount of like pain medication he was on. And I think this was around a time where that was normalized, as opposed to the very serious addiction that it would, like, people would come to realize about pain medication as the night is wore on. You know, we're kind of still in the Somas era.
Somas in the bum bag stuff.
This is it, as much as pain medication as it was to get a quote unquote buzz quicker on a night. So kind of Pillman was wrapped up in all kinds of like kind of painkiller issues, and, you know, was obviously using drugs and alcohol to medicate himself in general, just to stay on the road. He didn't like that. He was kind of felt like his body had betrayed him, obviously having been a big athlete and no longer being able to go, specifically after the car crash. But like, you know, the injuries and everything else that had piled up, he was aware of his own failings in the ring and kind of what that was costing him. But the erratic behavior had led to WWF forcing him to get a drug test, which badly alienated his relationship with Jim Ross, who was his like most trusted confidant. Jim Ross was one of the guys, you know, was the guy ultimately that fought to bring Pillman in. Pillman lashed out at Jim Ross and said, well, hang on, like, Shawn Michaels is coming out on TV, like, off his tits, like, and he's not getting tested. Like, what's the deal there? He felt like, you know, he should have been afforded that same kind of treatment. JR said, I'm trying to save your life, Brian. That's what I'm doing here. You know, this is all on like Dark Side of the Ring, this kind of like recollection from Jim Ross. But it did sour things between them. And Brian Pillman made a call to Eric Bischoff at the time. And per Bischoff himself, he said on the phone call, it was about, you know, Brian asking about what might be open for him to come back to WCW. But he didn't sound at all like him. When he rang, he didn't sound like the Brian Pillman that Bischoff remembered that had left WCW. There was an anecdote that Shane Douglas had spoke to Paul Heyman in the summer of '97 about the two of them finally paying off their ECW stuff, maybe with a pay-per-view match at November to Remember '97, because obviously there'd been a lot of work between the Fed and ECW. And Paul Heyman was brutally realistic with Shane Douglas and said, Shane, I don't think he'll be here by November. You know, like, none of these people are trying to be so grisly with their forecasts, but it was just in the ether that Brian was potentially about to be one of those tragic wrestling statistics than not. And like, we'll cover a little bit sort of as we go on, because I think the next night on Monday Night Raw needs pretty significant focus. It was going to be the ceremony, the vows renewal between Marlena and Goldust, that was ultimately to result in Marlena leaving Goldust for Brian Pillman. We'll kind of get onto what happens with those two in future editions of the podcast. But obviously, with that gone, and obviously with Brian Pillman being the story as much as anything else that had come from the pay-per-view, what followed was remarkable, quite honestly. There was a 10-bell salute that DX, well, they weren't named DX yet, but Triple H and Shawn Michaels elected not to be on the stage for. Whether it was a noble attempt to keep kayfabe or something more self-serving, we don't know, but Rick Rude was on the stage. The Undertaker wasn't on the stage, obviously having sold what's happened at Bad Blood the night before.
Was Austin there? I was looking for it. I was zooming in.
No, I think he was, but I'm not sure if the camera lingered on
Background,
him.
maybe. That'd be very Steve,
Yeah.
wouldn't it, to be in like the back row or something?
And we'll talk about obviously how some of the performers were affected when we do our pay-per-view review on the next edition of the podcast. But before we get into the meat of like what happens next, I guess, on Monday Night Raw, like just really, really sad that everything we've just praised about this like last month of him kind of getting this thing over and still having that amazing spark that he brought to wrestling, specifically within the last sort of like 2-3 years of his career, but just how far apart that was from what was going on behind the scenes physically for him.
Yeah, massively. And it's like, it's one of those all things are true, really. It's like, obviously, you know, he's a very different man here than when we all first saw him as Flying Brian and early WCW and all that stuff. But like, part of him being that different man is also the issues he's got. Like, you can't really divorce the two, can you? It's a bit like, it's a less PG-13 version of the Steve Austin story. Like, he becomes Steve Austin because of his injuries and because of what he has to do to, you know, to deal with it all, and becomes the real Steve that we all know in 1998 as a result. And like Pillman, like, I think the character is built on all those things, isn't it? It's built on the chaotic personal life and the reliance on drugs. Obviously, we're going to get into it. Vince is very much big on it's prescription drugs, it's prescription drugs, it's prescription drugs, but prescription drugs obviously being part of it as well. The accidents, obviously, they show in the video packages and all of that leads to, as we've been talking about pretty much, you know, through the end of season 1 and through early season 2, like outright, you know, the Owen match was funny, but like how bad his matches were on TV because they had to be short and they had to be, you know, we had to be protected in a certain way. So that's the negative of it. But the positive is you do get like this character who's got crazy ideas and this real life person who's, like I say, he's almost manic behind the scenes, isn't he? Like I say, wanting to work the sheets, wanting to attempt to, you know, to work the people in media and wanting to just think outside the box and do the wacky stuff he did in ECW, even down to the crazy stuff he was, you know, doing with, you know, Kevin Sullivan and everything in WCW as well. But like, you can't divorce at all. It's horrendous how it ends and so tragic. Like that, you know, a young man at, you know, at this point where, as I don't mind repeating the point we've said a few times on Housekeepings, man, imagine if he was around in 1998 for Steve Austin to work with. But like, it's all part of that big package, isn't it? It's just tragic as anything, but also, like you say there, the inevitability of it. Like, I can't, you know, often we'll talk about like these types of things, and like I say, do imagine if in 1998, but it's almost fruitless, isn't it? Like you say, with all the talk of everyone there, like, it did feel like it was going for a bad end, unfortunately, and he was like this blaze of glory that was gonna have to explode in some way, and it was almost predictable the way it happened, as you've said there, from all those accounts. It's awful, but like, what a performer, what a great character he was during this period, and what a talent he was. It's also tragic at the same time.
35 years old, like, it's one of them situations where like we went through decades of that being normalized, that kind of like wrestlers passing away in the 30s, and it took a long time to get out of that cycle. But especially now, like, it's one of them things, isn't it, where like there's a million things that would not happen now that happened in 1997. You know, we only just recently covered on our special delivery, like the match carrying on between Austin and Owen Hart, just as one example, right, of the sort of thing that would be immediately stopped without question. Like Brian Pillman transitioning over to one of 50 different roles he could have done in WWE as a 35-year-old, incredible talent without ever needing to take a bump ever again. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's mad that like there was sort of such a different headspace, I guess. And, you know, some of that will be Pillman's athletic background and where he believed he fit. And a lot of wrestlers have the ego that the day that they put on the commentator's suit is the day that they failed somehow and all that. But it's mad. The comparison almost doesn't exist, really, does it? There isn't a 2026 version of this story without companies making every effort to use somebody's talent for something else rather than simply
put them on commentary,
falling on your back.
Yeah, you know, that type of thing. I mean, you know, there's attempts of that, isn't it, in his early run? Like you say, he's probably fighting back against that as much as anybody else, but it really doesn't feel like, the company's got like the appetite they would now to do stuff like this. Like, and just to pick up on that, I was going to say as well, like, you know, as commonplace as these types of things, unfortunately, like becoming in the coming years, it probably is one of the first ones, isn't it? It's like, when you think about it, like all of like these 80s, 90s wrestlers with, you know, different things, whether it's drugs, whether it's, you know, the heart issue, as you mentioned there, and like you say, I'm sure it's a cocktail of all these things. Like, it's not that common, is it? Obviously, it starts becoming really common, like in the years that follow. Rick Rude, we're going to talk about today, is one that's unfortunately not too far in the future, but like, it feels like one of the early ones, doesn't it?
Yeah, there was in like, I think it was around 98. So after WrestleMania 14, Shawn Michaels like, I don't know who was responsible for this. I think it's an Observer tidbit, quite dark, like was getting nicknamed Louis after the fact that Louis Spicoli had just passed in WCW under similar circumstances. And Shawn was in such a state that like he was kind of getting nicknamed Louis or the next Louis, you know, because he was, you know, the drugs had gotten so out of control. But no, you're right. It's well, I mean, let's get to it, because this comes up from, of all people, Melanie Pillman. We use these housekeepings to recap what happened on Raw, and I think we kind of can't. You know, it's so much fun. I'd be the first to say there's nothing like going back and revisiting these episodes of Monday Night Raw. But just while we're on Pillman, I personally would feel like we're doing a disservice if we don't cover this and just try and make sense of it, quite honestly. So in the very like uncomfortably heavily promoted interview with Melanie Pillman in the second hour of the Raw after Bad Blood, 24 hours after obviously the death of her husband, she's in the living room. And what's really crazy is that we've seen this living room on Monday Night Raw before. It's the same living room on the same sofa in the same spot where Brian Pillman sat with his leg in a pot when Steve Austin broke in and Pillman pulled out the gun. It's one of them only in wrestling things, that really, isn't it? And Vince, from like in a split screen, asks what has she been told about his death. Melanie, through obviously pain tears, says she's heard there was a problem with his heart. His heart was under stress and he's had a heart attack in his sleep. And she's groaning with the pain of it. You know, she isn't like, there's no other way to say this. She is like grieving the death of her husband from 24 hours ago live on television. Vince says, we knew that Brian had taken prescription medication for his injuries and that he might have taken too much. He asks her, second question of the interview, is there anything she wants to say to athletes that might take too much? She then says, well, he'd had the car accident as well as other injuries. She knows a lot of people that rely on pain medication. And she honestly thought it was a matter of time before it happened to someone. Unfortunately, it's her husband it's happened to. She wants people to know that she hopes it's a wake-up call. She kind of looks at the camera at this point and says, it could be your husband or it could be you leaving behind orphans. Vince asks, how were the children taking the news? I keep going back to this. 24 hours. She says the 4-year-old little Brian doesn't understand. That's Lexus King, of course. He doesn't get why daddy isn't coming home. And then she mentions that their adopted daughter, Brittany, a teenager, she was adopted by Melanie. It was Brian's daughter with another woman who had killed herself a couple of years ago. So now her biological parents have both passed, and she just obviously says that, you know, that just the most unbelievable trauma and grief that this Brittany would have had to go through. The camera at this point is like dramatically zoomed in on Melanie's face as she delivers this news. I can't believe I'm reading this. Vince McMahon says, have you thought about what you'll do to support your 5 children? She says she doesn't know. She says the outpouring of support from the fans and the company and the people on the internet has been good, but she doesn't know what she'll do afterwards. And then he says, how would you like Brian to be remembered? She says, as a compassionate man, the best father in the world. He loved the business. He lived for the business and he died for the business. And she hopes that nobody else will have to die. He thanks her and she says thanks, though, you know, more tears are coming. The grief just completely overwhelms her. It immediately falls into a Jim Ross narrated video package. And to your point about wrestler deaths at the time, there wasn't really it sounds awful. There wasn't really a template for these things like there would become one. So it's weird how, again, 24 hours later, they've already kind of like tried to create a narrative around who Brian Pillman was. So it's almost as if his entire life was basically fighting against death. They talk about how he had like multiple surgeries on his throat as a child to remove cancerous polyps, and that obviously explains his raspy voice. The times that he was told he was too small for sports, and yet he still ended up playing for the Cincinnati Bengals. And when injuries cut his football career short, he got into wrestling. How he refused to quit after the car accident, how he refused to quit despite always being in constant pain. And then the quote at the end is, his battle with life ended tragically in a hotel room in Bloomington, Minnesota, but Brian Pillman's courage will live forever, as like almost like sort of triumphant music plays over the video package. Just really briefly, the question about, you know, how will you support your kids? Melanie Pillman on, and we'll talk a little bit about Melanie in a second, but Melanie on Dark Side of the Ring, the Brian Pillman episode, does actually say she agreed to do it and she didn't feel pressured into it, partly because, well, there's the answer to one of the questions. This is how I'm going to get food. This is how I'm going to get money. You know, there were various checks sent to Melanie Pillman by Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation in the subsequent years. He was paid in full for the duration of his contract. There were various, obviously, the Brian Pillman benefit shows. The money went to the family. Vince McMahon cut checks for various things, I think maybe to help towards buying a house. Like there's, you know, documented sort of payments that were made. So she would have felt that kind of like that, almost that need, I guess, to almost, right, well, I guess I'll earn the wage on this episode of Raw and we'll see what happens. An astonishing thing to try and wrap your head around as you're in this immediate like grieving period. But even then, she did specify before the cameras rolled, can you not mention prescription pills? And he just did it anyway, you know, because obviously Vince McMahon's motivation was to get it over the line that the World Wrestling Federation didn't have some sort of drug problem, and he didn't want Brian Pillman to be like a reflection of that drug problem, or indeed his locker room, despite what we now know was also going on elsewhere. It's like, it's an indefensible bit of television is the long and short of this. The motivations are completely obvious, completely disgusting, completely cynical. And what's mad is that, like, up until the Netflix deal, you could find this episode in the network archive. You know, there's no Brian Pillman. You mentioned about how he was the first. Chris Benoit is not somebody that gets featured. There are wrestler deaths, there are wrestler stories. Christ, this company will sometimes go to lengths to remove wrestlers from a video package if there's been a political fallout. This was not hard to come by, yet as a sort of piece of produced television, it's probably the single worst thing they've ever put on television, ever.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it. It's like, I'm glad to, you know, I watched that Dark Side of the Ring episode. I'm glad to be reminded of the fact that, like, they do, to an extent, you know, take care of Melanie and the kids and the family, at least, you know, by their standards. Like, they do a lot, you know, that is a positive that comes with it. But, like, it almost feels like it comes from guilt if Vince McMahon as a human being is able to, like, feel any guilt, because that's exactly what this is. Everyone talked about it at the time, and obviously that's what it's seen as. It's a ratings ploy. It purely is. Like you say, the heavy promotion of it, and the, you know, coming soon, you know, an interview with Melanie Pillman, like you said, 24 hours after his body was found. Like, it's not even like it's a week later, or it's like, just thinking about it in practical terms again, like, you know, the body's not been flown home at this point. Like, as far as, you know, her experience of it is, he went away to work and he's just not came back. And she's, you know, not been pressured, as you say, agreed to do this, but shouldn't have ever been put in the position to agree to it, because, of course, her head's all over the place. Of course, she's not going to be making, you know, a reasoned decision there. And, like, with all that said, she does as well as you could in the circumstances. That was my biggest emotion coming out of it. Like, she comes across well in that, you know, she manages to answer the questions, and she comes across dignified, especially compared to Vince McMahon, in that, like, yeah, that was my big underline. It's the question of what are you going to do now? Like, that one is the one that feels very gotcha, very 1997, very TV ratingsy. The rest of it shouldn't be on telly in the first place, but it's mostly reasonable questions outside of the prescription drug kind of obsession there that Vince has got at that point. But it's that question that takes it over the line and just makes you feel dirty watching it, doesn't it? It's an ugly thing to see. She doesn't come across bad at all, because, you know, all the sympathy in the world is there, and she does handle it as well as she could. But you can even see it in her reaction to that question about what you're going to do. It's like, it's almost like, Vince, I haven't even thought of that. Like, it kind of pierces through the camera, like, why are you even asking me that? But she's having to, as she said in later years, mind the P's and Q's, because she's thinking, well, hopefully you fucker, hopefully it's going to be you lot that's going to be helping me out here, because, you know, that's how he's died, really. It's just, every bit of it's awful. It is. I think it won, like you said there, with The Observer, most disgusting promotional tactic that year, like, by a landslide, as it should. And it really is just, even 1997 or not, completely just disgusting stuff. And yeah, it stinks of desperation, doesn't it? You know, in the height of a Monday Night War.
Yeah, it's I sort of wanted to wrap this section up, really talking a bit more about, like, the subsequent years for the Pillman family as a result of this. Brittany, the daughter that Melanie mentioned through Dark Side and through various interviews in the years that passed. Melanie like didn't go on to have a great time of it. Brittany talks about like that times were still very difficult financially in spite of obviously some of these payments and whatnot, as well you can imagine. That I think Brian Pillman Jr. on the Dark Side episode mentioned how like the man that Melanie remarried was like particularly abusive. She had problems with drink and drugs herself. That seems like it was a part of an issue between her and Brian at the time. They were going through a trial separation. Linda Pillman, Brian's mother, the grandma to all the children, is kind of like cast as the sort of the savior and the guiding light, just a total angel. How she would like always be there for all of them, regardless of kind of what was going on with Melanie in the aftermath of all of this. And it just sort of like not to sort of try and like find a light at the end of this dark tunnel that they were all in, I guess. But Melanie Pillman passed away in 2022, not long after that Dark Side of the Ring aired. And it was obviously something that she was a vital contributor to, as much as anybody else in it. And there was a post by Brian Jr., now working as Lexus King in WWE, who he gets pelters, whatever. That's just wrestling, isn't it? He put a post on and he said, yesterday, my mother, Melanie Pillman, was pronounced dead. Those of you who know our family story understand that I didn't have the best relationship with my mother, that my sister and I had been in touch with her, working hard to improve that relationship. He goes on to talk about how, like he enjoys interacting with fans, and she's come on his Twitch streams of late, and how she's been able to like add a bit of color to the Brian Pillman stories, and he's been kind of grateful for that. He said her death, while unexpected, was not surprising. Her lifestyle choices that dominated the better part of the last 25 years ultimately caught up with her. She was intelligent as she was beautiful, and a dark sense of humor could make even the biggest prude burst out in laughter. Though I built up my resentment towards her, I was very proud of her for taking part in the Dark Side of the Ring documentary and sharing the truth about our family story. This was the beginning of us mending our relationship. A few weeks ago, she'd been tuning into my Twitch stream when she was told me that she was coming over to Linda, that's the grandmother's house. I met her outside, accepted a gift, gave her a hug, and went on the way. I regret not sitting down with her for a little bit, going to grab lunch with her. She looked really healthy and sober. That was the last time I saw her. Thank you, Mom, for bringing me into the world and trying your absolute best. Rest in peace. I love you. And like, you can tell there's a lot of difficult stuff that's, and obviously never going to be fully resolved in that family. And I can't imagine having the broad shoulders to kind of get through it, I guess. But, it's odd. Like, it's one of them things, isn't it, where like in some respects is the wrestling bit from an outsider's point of view, is the wrestling business the safest space? Like the obvious answer would presumably be no. But then to go back to what we were just talking about, is 2026's wrestling business a more empathetic place, a more supportive environment, a place where Brian Pillman Jr. can probably have really nice times talking with those that knew his dad, that can share like not memories of his dad, but can share the things he's learned about his dad, and then kind of like have a chat backstage at WrestleMania with Steve Austin, whatever it is. Like, we're not ones to judge how people work their way through something like that. And maybe, just maybe, wrestling is a slightly nicer place now, that it is a better place for him than, say, if he'd have got in 1998 in the immediate aftermath or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't really judge, can you? Like,
no, and that's it. It's like in prep for this, like I often I'll listen to the Grilling JR episode that taught like this period, and like it's actually weirdly from when I think it was in AEW was just launched, and when JR came in, and like there's a line that stuck with me. He talks a lot about Pillman and his affection for him and stuff like that, and I had the same reaction. When Melanie says, little Brian doesn't understand, 4-year-old Brian, which is Brian Pillman that would become Lexus King, like. JR mentions that as well, and just casually says something like, and I'm rooting for Brian. He's a good kid, and that's how I felt. Like every time we revisit the story, when the Dark Side of the Ring episode came out, when you think about it in like this level of detail, you can't help but like root for something good to come with that. And obviously he's had ups and downs as far as his wrestling career goes, and doesn't always help himself either. But again, not too dissimilar from his dad in that way. You can't help but root for a positive to come of it. And yeah, it is a completely different, wrestling business to what it was back then. It is, a healthier place for people, and we're not having, people dropping dead every minute. It's still not a thing I'd recommend anyone to do. Taking bumps for a living is, just it itself probably a stupid activity to do, but comparison's sake, like, it's night and day, isn't it, from 30 years ago?
Yeah. And ultimately, it will come up that, the death of Brian Pillman will come up in quite a pronounced way when we do the Bad Blood review. But I suppose it was just, as much from our own point of view, this was important, I guess, to document as well and to pay proper tribute. We haven't had a situation like this occur in our timeline. No. And whilst it might not really factor in, the Fed moves at 100 miles an hour to such an extent that, like, within the one podcast and another podcast, it's almost like there was no time to stand still and reflect that, like, a guy in October had passed away, considering what was to come in November, December, January, February, and so on and so forth. But but we can. Brian Pillman was class.
Yeah, absolutely. Like an unbelievable performer in every single way. I got a more of affinity for him every time I go back and do this stuff. Like, we covered the ECW stuff on Grapple, and I was like, oh, fucking hell, how fucking great was that? And even just covering the bits of the ECW stuff, I want to go back on and watch more, especially the later day, more character-driven stuff, and, all of the Four Horsemen stuff and all of that. Like, he is just, and going back to the 90s, it's like a trailblazing junior heavyweight, having the first match on the first Nitro, all of that stuff. It's a great career that I'd like to do more justice to and go back and watch, because he's an absolute all-timer. And just, it's awful as well. We're going to talk about it on the review, like the fact that his colleagues and friends and stuff are all having to perform in the wake of all this. And again, it's a very different place, 1997, and how they try and deal with that, like, on air, which we'll get into in the next episode as well. So maybe we'll take it easy on some of the stuff that's on that undercard, because, there's no industry like it, is there, unfortunately? Like, wrestling does this. Any other, like, the footy game would be cancelled, wouldn't it? The Premier League would postpone the game. Like, there'd be a whole different way of dealing with it. But yeah, they don't really get to pay tribute in the way that they'd like to. But yeah, it's good that we've at least been able to do the man a little bit of justice here. Absolutely, yeah.
We'll try and get back, I guess, to what our usual schedule housekeeping would be, which is to recap everything else going into Bad Blood. But we might as well start with a man that we both would have loved to have seen Brian Pillman work against in a different timeline at different points, because, God, they came so close. Shawn Michaels and Brian Pillman could have made magic together, and probably did in a different universe. But Michaels
in a bar somewhere, coming out, I'm sure they did.
Oh, God. Coming out of that incredible Ground Zero match, a match to build a match that in itself was one of the best matches of the year. And we've got the obvious continuation of Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. And we get pretty much right out the gate the unveiling, I guess, of Hell in a Cell, or to use a bit of a Brettism, it was often called Hell in the Cell, because it's so box fresh that nobody quite knows what it is, other than the specifics of why it exists. The September 8th Raw, the night after Ground Zero, features a recap of all of the chaos that took place in that main event, as well as some of the other segments in the night, the likes of, I think we documented it in the podcast, the amount of, like, referees and officials just getting decked. This idea that a commissioner had been put in place to restore a bit of order, and things had immediately gotten 10 times worse in response. And Slaughter himself is trying to get on top of this. And basically he does so by ushering in Hell in a Cell with the approval of the authorities within the World Wrestling Federation. It's not a steel cage. They're very clear on that for a number of different reasons. It's not a steel cage. It's going to be a mesh cell with a top on it. The Undertaker speaks on it first and says he credits Shawn Michaels for looking death in the eye and not blinking, but he's not going to rest until his flesh is rotting from his bones. Shawn Michaels interrupts the promo on the Titantron, say, yet again, I was backed into a corner, and yet again, I escaped. This is going to be no different. Dead man, I'm a survivor, and I'll survive Hell in a Cell. If I'm the one in that coffin, if I'm the one going in that coffin, you're coming with me. Undertaker gives it the rest in peace. And then later, actually on that show, it's more sort of they try and obviously build Shawn and the Undertaker, but at the same time, for reasons that will become clear, they're building the importance of Shawn's newfound relationship with Triple H, China, and Rick Rude. Obviously, the very nature of the sell is to stop the chaos, but so much of the chaos was driven by the fact that Shawn's hanging out with these other heels, and they're constantly getting involved. They're constantly sort of like whether it be from the original chair shot in the tag team match, for example, it's all related at this point that Shawn's got this gang of goons with him. And to illustrate that point, in the main event of this Raw, Shawn Michaels actually helps Triple H defeat Savio Vega and the Patriot in a triple threat match. The Bariquas run down. So China, spotting the situation, slides steel chairs in to both Hunter and Shawn. And Hunter, Shawn, and China kind of guard the ring. The Patriot gets a few shots, so Vader comes down to try and help the Patriot, but neither the Vader nor the Bariquas can get in the ring because Shawn, Hunter, and China have got the steel chairs. There's a great bit where Shawn is actually doing the Vader pose, taking the piss out of Vader because he just can't get in the ring to do anything about it. And then right as Raw goes off the air, you see the Hearts appear on the stage as well because they're about to get folded into all of this. They've kind of, within one visual, created this idea of they're not yet called it, but it's kind of DX versus the world. And that obviously factors into Shawn's individual program with The Undertaker. We go to the September the 15th, 1997 Raw, and I'll recap this and then I'll get your thoughts because I feel like we both have pretty strong ones on the Shawn Michaels promo specifically. This is an unhinged bit of business. Shawn Michaels comes out in the tiniest biker shorts he owns. And we only see the edited version, Benno, because this took place on a taped Raw that Shawn would later document in one of his documentaries where he was fined for, I think he said it was some gauze. Might have been gauze. It might have been socks. I don't know what. He stuffed these tiny shorts with something around his dick and balls. And then he basically did leaping crotch chops in Jim Ross's face as Jim Ross was trying to conduct the interview, to the point where Jim had to cut him off and be like, yeah, I can see you. Shawn in this time, he's like lying on his back, crotch chopping up at the sky. He's got the sunglasses on and just about nothing else. He blames the powers that be in the WWF still for the start of all this. But then he tells an outright lie and says, they're the ones that begged me to be the ref at SummerSlam. Shawn says, and at that pay-per-view the other week, I gave you the best match on the card. Why? Because I can, and it's what I do. And what do I get as a reward from the powers that be? I get hell in the cell. And Shawn says, well, why once again would I get that match? Because I can. I'm the man that can. The Undertaker replies on the screen from like behind a mesh cage, and he says, Shawn, at Bad Blood, there will be no escape, and I'm the only one that's going to leave. You're going to pay daily for your crimes. Call it what you will. Hell in the Cell, Bad Blood, it's going to be your resting place. And then the Undertaker, that's supposed to be like the big closing moments. But Michaels closes the promo by something that we actually don't see. We see him saying, I've made you taste your blood once, dead man, and I'm going to make you taste it again. See you at the pay-per-view. But something was edited from that promo, Benno, in something that we would later see on a live edition of Dynamite in 2022 when CM Punk calls out Hangman Page despite him not being in the building. On that Raw, on that night, Shawn Michaels goes into business for himself and says, big brave dead man, if you're so brave, why don't you come out here? Knowing full well that the Undertaker wasn't there in person. It's no surprise this didn't make air, but naturally it made the sheets. Naturally it made the locker room a fucking livid with Shawn Michaels, and it was just one of the many ongoing stories about Michaels' impossible backstage conduct that, much to the chagrin of everybody else, he just kept getting away with. Just Cardinal Sin City all over the place for HBK. But it's kind of catnip for us, isn't it? Because it still makes him just one of the most intoxicating people to watch.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it shouldn't be, it's wrong, being entertained by this, but it is very entertaining watching him do it. Again, all of these, things are true about Shawn Michaels at this point. But like, it's funny, I read about that before I saw it. And I was like, why is everyone so mad that Shawn Michaels is challenging Undertaker and he's not coming out when he wasn't there? Like, surely that works from a kayfabe point of view. Forgetting that when I watched it back, I was like, oh no, they show Undertaker on the screen, so it makes him look fucking horrendous that he doesn't come out like that. It's just pure distilled 1997 Shawn, as is pointing at his own dick, as is knocking around in his undies. Which, by the way, a lot of these clips I feel like they used on the DX Titantron when it eventually comes together, and used in highlight packages and stuff. So he's clearly onto something, Shawn. He clearly, he was thinking forwards, and obviously it wasn't so bad if they didn't use it at that point. But like, it's so entertaining to see it. It's perfect to set up this hell in a / this hell match, which, like you say, is like the Sex in the City or Sex in a City. That always gets confused by a lot of people as well. Like, it's the same thing, but like it's perfect, and it's funny as well. Like, speaking of like the branding of hell in a cell, like you said, it just drops in. I'd forgotten that. It's just like, it's literally right after Ground Zero, we're talking about it like it's Gabbo, isn't it? It's like it's always been here. Yeah, Hell in a Cell, it's coming soon, Hell in a Cell. But I remember at home being like, what's this Hell in a Cell? Why is it different than a regular cage match? What does it mean? And they do a really great job of just beating you over the head with it, that it's going to be like this ultimate, place for this match for Shawn and Taker, and this ultimate place that Shawn is going to finally pay for his crimes. And like you say, professional or not, I think that all works within it. People in the crowd are mad at Shawn. People backstage are mad at Shawn. Well, it all adds to this intoxicating man and feud and feeling of, in both ways, you want to see Undertaker get his hands on him in the cage match. So ultimately, is it professional behavior? No. But ultimately, does it make it more exciting? It does, doesn't it? Even when you don't know what's going on. As a kid, I'm watching this being entertained by it and not knowing why. It's peak 1997 Shawn. This is why it's the best / worst he'll ever be.
I've got a confession to make as well. I remember hearing Hell in a Cell, and the way they were describing it, they kept saying, and it's got a top on it. It's got a top on it. I remember thinking the roof would be wood paneling. I can't explain why, but I've got this visual in my head to this day of the chicken wire fences with a wooden roof on top of it. And that was until I actually saw it for myself. I remember thinking, oh yeah, that makes loads more sense. But when you're a kid and you've started to completely justify it, and you've painted the picture 10 times in your head, why is the roof the same as the kit? Got you. Yeah. but it was the unknown, wasn't it? They couldn't call it the War Games cage, or they couldn't reference other things that had been similar in the past. This was to be brand new. It was it was the last Battle of Atlanta, was it not? That was the inspiration for it. I think Shawn and Jim Cornette and a few other people had seen this fabled match with the cage with the top. It was the one that went hidden for years, wasn't it? Until somebody unearthed the tape and stuck it on like a primitive vault or the network or whatever it was. So there was precedent for it, but certainly not in the WWF. To go back to the last couple of weeks of build, Madison Square Garden, September 22nd, 1997. And we're dancing around the big thing that went on that show, but Shawn was part of it as well. He comes out and says, New York City, you've had the rest. Now have the headliner himself, Shawn Michaels. He's hitting these lines a lot at the moment, and you can kind of see where and why he's banging on about calling himself the headliner in the main event. Shawn Michaels wants to tell New York City how he became European champion. We'll do that for you, Shawn, later on in this very episode. But he's got the European title slung over his shoulder just days after one night only in the UK. He calls out the Undertaker and says, I want you out here right now, dead man, so I can slap you around main event style. He's getting the Shawn is gay chant, so yet again he just fires it right back in the face of every single fan. Ask your mom, ask your sister, all that sort of stuff. He's just like, that one's like right off the top of his dome at this point. Undertaker answers the call. Triple H attacks the Undertaker from behind. Rude and Chyna make the appearance as well. They all put the boots to the Undertaker, and then Shawn drills him yet again with the chair. But the Undertaker makes his own. The brown chair, of course, makes his own recovery, doesn't he? And he chases them to the back. It's almost as if like Shawn's sort of plans and games won't work anymore. And to that point, later on in the main event, Shawn's rabble-rousing again while Bret's in a match with Goldust. Shawn hits the ring after the match and goes for Bret Hart. But here's Triple H and here's Owen. The Bulldog even limps down. There's a DX Hart fight that's kind of breaking out in amongst all of this. The Undertaker makes the appearance to just batter anybody that moves. And you see him hitting a double choke slam on Bret and Shawn as Raw goes off the air. They would go on to have a triple threat dark match, which is available on all the kind of like the Hidden Gems videos now. It's really short, but it's just a really cool thing that they gave the Garden that night, and then the last Raw, the Go Home Raw for Bad Blood, September 29th, 1997. Shawn Hunter, Chyna, and Rick Rude open Raw together. Shawn, Chyna, and Triple H have their own pose for the first time. It's crazy. We've talked a lot about the development of Steve Austin. We are so close to them just putting that sucker into an X, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
So they're doing like muscle poses. They've been trying the triple threat. They've been
it's awkward, isn't it?
Oh man, they're so close. They're dancing around it, but they're all kind of like trying to make their bits work. Rude is still very much
is also there.
Insurance. Yeah, Rick Rude is also there. And you know, you'll agree with me on this. I think in my head canon, he's always OGDX, but they're very keen to kind of like call him the insurance man. And Shawn always calls him Ravishing Rick. He doesn't call him Rick Rude, and it's almost like he's trying to undermine him just that little bit, you know.
Totally. It's annoying because I feel that way. Like I'm the same way. They're OGDX. This is the way it always should have been. I'm rewatching this like in quote unquote real time as we're doing. I'm like, Shawn really, the sheets were right. Shawn really doesn't want to be. And to be fair, he is filling a role that Chyna could absolutely be doing instead. Yeah. But like, it bleeds. It's actually making me upset every segment. I'm like, they really don't. I thought Rube was part of the gang. He's really not part of the gang.
He's not, is he? Old ravishing Jose Lothario. It's just happening all over again for Shawn, isn't it? But like, flashbacks. This is where, because they're all now getting this like promo time as a group, and that's kind of established. It's as much about the background dicking around as it is the actual promo itself. While Rude's offering Vince an insurance policy, Shawn is giving Vince a wet willy and flicking his ear, and they're just behaving like arseholes. Vince even he just says, right, anyway, over to the wise ass of the World Wrestling Federation, Shawn Michaels. Shawn says, like, we're the initial outlaws of the World Wrestling Federation. We came, we saw, and in Madison Square Garden, we kicked the dead man's ass. And then Shawn just says, anyway, Triple H, this is your chance, my friend. I want you to unload on the World Wrestling Federation. Triple H gets given the microphone and given the platform. And he just kind of cuts a promo on Vince McMahon in the ring with them. He says, the World Wrestling Federation and Vince McMahon have always been afraid of clicks. Isn't that right, Vince? Well, this is one click you are never going to break up. Triple H, Chyna, Shawn Michaels, somebody else.
Rude's just stood there like,
ravishing spare prick Rude. Like, just... So Triple H goes on. He says, I've been sat back while you and the WWF spread your legs like a cheap whore for the so-called WWE superstars. I've said E in my notes there. That's autocorrected. I should have said F.
I thought E.
He cuts himself off. He goes like, you got a little something on your ear there. And he flicks something off Vince's ear. Oh, it's a pretty good ad-lib from Triple H just to like really like sort of pierce the veneer of how serious all this is supposed to be. He says, none of them can lace my boots. My good friend has told me that all along, and now there's no stopping us, obviously referring to Shawn. Undertaker, we enjoyed kicking your dead ass all over Madison Square Garden. We'll do it again. At this point, Triple H is arguing with Vince to not even let him hold the microphone so that he can be the guy to interview Shawn Michaels. Vince is like, I'll hold it. And Triple H just ad-libs, well, at least you're good for something. And then it's Triple H. He's almost done a really great job of being all of a sudden one of the coolest guys in 1997. But he's Triple H and he fucks it up. He says, this ring is our house and it's our house of pain. What? You're doing so well, Paul. Shawn takes back over. You get back to carrying the bags. You're doing all right, but like Shawn takes the interview back. Slaughter comes out, and this is piss funny. Like they're both in. He's in Shawn's face, but they're both selling the spit. They're both like trying to cover the face. They're
hide behind the belt.
Hair. Oh, hiding behind that famous shot of him, like hiding behind the belt, sticking his tongue up like that, just undermining everything. But it's just captivating.
I love this when I was 13.
Me too. It was great. Slaughter says that like, this is what it was. Slaughter books The Undertaker versus Triple H for that night, which is when DX finally sells something. They finally sell that this is bad. Otherwise, they're just above it all. They don't give a shit, whatever. But The Undertaker in action against Triple H is something they do not like. And you see that as a contrast to what they don't sell next. Because the Hearts interrupt and Brett's got the microphone. Oh, Jesus, Brett, mate, he needs to leave. He says, hey there, boy toys. You got, let me tell you, you got more problems than just the Undertaker. You've committed crimes against the Hart family. You've crossed the line and there's no coming back from it. And you're going to pay tonight. And Shawn and Triple H just do their little sideways. us, that famous image is captured here where they do the fake shock from selling the prospect of even having to wrestle the Undertaker to not giving a fucking shit what the Hart family what are you gonna do to them. Like, they couldn't have made them look more like old dated losers. Just really briefly.
Brett he's 2 lines away from being like, you ever been to Europe live? Because you are gay, you two. Get it? Like, he's in his, like, Shawn, and all of a sudden, Shawn and Hunter are feeling very 1997, and Brett's the one who's feeling data. But I've got to say as well, just quickly on like that, like the whole thing of like selling the shock face and all of that. Like, you can literally see Shawn telling Hunter, do it again.
Yeah.
Like, he's still calling all the shots here. Even when Hunter's on the mic, Shawn's like whispering stuff and telling him what to do and say. Because, like you say, Hunter's not, well, Triple H now is not fully comfortable in his own skin. You can tell he's somewhere between like his posh voice that he used to do and his actual voice. It's like his voice is breaking in real time. It's a bit of a higher octave than it probably should be for the material that he's doing. But he is, like, there are elements of that, and I think we actually might start complimenting, Paul Levesque a little bit in the coming months. He is better for it, it is way more compelling than what he was doing before, but he still needs leading, is the thing here. By Bad Big Brother Shawn.
Shawn sees how it looks, the back end of it looks on the Titantron, and he wants it preserved properly, doesn't he? That's it. Yeah. It's just like, that's Shawn. And
it's like when you have kids, I'm sure you know with the kids, it's like when like the older cousin's doing something, so the younger cousin's just not copying them, not really knowing why they're doing it, but it's like, this is funny, he's getting a laugh, so let's all do it. That's Hunter, like in this incarnation.
I do love that the very last moments of the Undertaker feud serve to get you kind of ready for like the run at Shawn and Brett. But this is telling how it's going to go, isn't it? Because you can see how they treat the Undertaker versus how they don't really want to sell for the Hearts or the Hart Foundation. More of that to come. But the last segment between the two is extremely significant for what we're about to get into here. Undertaker gets attacked by DX once again. Rude hits him with the briefcase and then opens the briefcase to reveal a body bag. Shawn hits Sweet Chin Music after they've all held the Undertaker up, and they put the Undertaker in his own body bag. They're all posing, being heels, everything's great, and then the Undertaker sits up in the body bag, tears himself out of it. Oh, it's class, man.
We hate him, but it's great. It's really good.
He's brilliant, man. Makes his own save yet again. You just totally believe him as this like one man like wrecking crew taking out these dickheads that have got it coming. He beats up Triple H, but he's not going to stop until he gets to Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels flees up the ramp. He goes to go through the curtains, but a bright red light stops him. Like, that's weird, but there's not enough time to concentrate on why that's incredibly weird, because Shawn has taken to the escape in the only way he knows how, which is to climb up the Titantron. Raw goes off the air with us not being aware if Shawn is going to get to the top of the Titantron and then do what, but the Undertaker's going after him. And it's a little bit of foreshadowing that when presented with a metal structure and nowhere to escape, Shawn Michaels might just climb it. So there's even a little sell for the match itself, if you'll pardon the pun. Like, absolutely gripping. And in hindsight, like, considering how little that the Undertaker being a murderer story has been mentioned in the last month, what a gorgeous little final detail just to put something in. Don't think about it a lot, think about it a little, because that might matter in 6 days time.
It's cleverer than you'd, and again, while creative is firing a lot in 1987, it's cleverer even than you give them credit for. I'd forgotten that little detail. You'd literally put on our notes, it's the final Kane tease, and I was like, the final Kane tease? Does Bear get on the mic? Does something happen? I'd completely forgotten about just the mystery red light, and that's it. That's all you get. Like, there's no reason either you would associate red with Kane or the Paul Bearer story or any of it. None of it really links together until you get to the pay-per-view. It's very good, and like you say, the last shot of Shawn it's also foreshadowing of the match as well. I think they do a really good job in this TV window building this stuff. And again, Undertaker's perfect as like the man who wants revenge. And I honestly, again, as much as we slag him off, I think Hunter is raising Shawn's game. I think there's an inherent chemistry to two mates being out there together and recruit, and like they are bringing out some bad sides of each other very clearly, as we've noted there with the unprofessionalism, but they're bringing out, there's a chemistry there that you can't help but enjoy while it's on screen as well. Like, these formative days of DX / the Click / the Triple Threat are really good TV.
Yeah, I hate so much that Triple H, he doesn't do it as much anymore, but I hate all those years where they would talk about how vital this kind of stuff was to the formation of the Attitude Era and the kind of those early days. But then the clips and the references would be the Tank and would be like the baby face group, because it's not, is it? This is reflective of the attitude change and the way that the product has shifted philosophically. The bullshit in 98 is just fun. That's making the money off all the hard work you've done. This is where this is like, ironically, this is the boots on the ground stuff, isn't it? This is where they're kind of actually making the changes. Just quickly, I suppose, because you must be sick to this back teeth of this specific show. But Shawn never got around to explaining why the European title was on his shoulder in Madison Square Garden. So we're going to do it. One night only. The Bulldog loses the European title to Shawn Michaels after the future DX, the triple threat have battered his knee throughout without anybody coming to help the British Bulldog from the Hart family. The story being that they've gone heat, and Shawn Michaels has infamously politicked to win that belt with the promise that he'll do business for Davey when they're back in Manchester in April. But he's certainly not thinking too much about that when he's got the Bulldog passing out in the figure 4 leg lock. Bulldog loses. Shawn takes the house mic, says, "All right, you limeys, take a look at your champion. Hart family, this is for you. And Diana Smith, my sweetheart, this is especially for you." They throw the knee brace out to Diana as Diana sat next to Davey Boy Smith's sister, who of course had cancer, who he dedicated the match to. It just it magnifies the ugliness of this specific political decision by Shawn Michaels. They put him back in the figure 4. Hunter's got the microphone in Bulldog's face saying, "Scream for your country, Bulldog." Diana runs in, tries to use the knee brace to pry Shawn away, but Chyna pries her away. He is unbelievable. This is like NWO level litter getting thrown into the ring in Birmingham, which, of course, as you and I well know, is right next to the Bulldog's hometown. So, naturally people go nuts. Owen and Brett finally run in, make the save. The look is plastered across Brett's face that this is not a work. He hates that scrawny little bastard. Shawn, Triple H and Chyna walk out to the floor to celebrate, and yet again, as you pointed out with Hunter, a great call by Shawn. Pick me up. And Shawn couldn't look a bigger arsehole as basically Hunter dirty dancing Shawn into the air. So he becomes a human target for the trash as Shawn holds up this belt that within 6 days he's basically burying it on television. Drinks are all over the heels. Diana's crying in the ring. Bret the Hitman Hart looks like he legitimately wants to murder Shawn Michaels. And One Night Only goes off the air in a way that nobody could have possibly imagined.
I mean, I've got to say, like you alluded to there, I think I've reviewed this show 3 times. I would like it to be a 4th. Maybe we'll do it one day. Maybe we'll revisit it again. But I want to be consistent with my takes on that, because I think in all of them, I was kind of like, I really enjoyed it. But it was obviously wrong, Was it clearly bad?
It's not on, is it? It's not on.
It's not. It's not. The stuff with the sister, all that. I'm less sympathetic to Brett's complaints about, no one came to save him and all that stuff. I mean, even down to the sanctity of the European belt, or like the other thing people get mad about, like the fact that, he said he'd do it because he dropped the belt back to Davey and he never did it. It's like, yeah, because Davey fucked off to WCW like 2.5 months later. Like, I mean, it wasn't. Shawn probably still would have not done it and probably would have gifted the belt to Triple H anyway. But we don't actually know that for certain, it's not, I don't think you can really beat him up for that. But it is also, and I think I did say this, moralistically, it is bad. But, they can't win every time in the UK. And, the heel going over here does create a load of heat. And the other argument people would make against it is, it's the type of thing that'd kill a town. Did it kill the town, Michael? Because I feel like it fucking didn't, when it comes to them returning the year after. Maybe we give the credit to that to Steve and not to Shawn, but, you know what I'm saying. It's like everything Shawn Michaels we've talked about today. All of those things are true, and it's also wildly entertaining. It's also, again, 13-year-old kid. I'm watching this on my couch. I'm the one with me 3 mates. Like they're all fuming that the British Bulldog lost, and I'm jumping up and down on the couch. To be fair, I was like that for Brett at SummerSlam 92 as well, so at least I'm consistent. Yep. He's got a British flag on his ass. That means I'm supposed to like him. Fuck that. Shawn's my guy. I was made up, as were the girls of the crowd, and it's a well more memorable scene for all of the bad reasons that led there. But yeah, I did get a kick out of watching it again today, I've got to be honest.
I imagine young Benno and Hamflett were just buzzing watching a Bulldog pay-per-view main event that wasn't complete shit. Like that was overdue, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's funny, right? Before we get to we've talked a lot about the man that was calling himself the headliner, the main event, the icon that could still go, but in reality, that was quickly becoming the preserve of another man on this roster. But this man, Stone Cold Steve Austin, who we're going to get to in a second, was not one of the Benno Fab Four. I'm sure you would have grown up non-stop thinking about a Fab Four in your part of the world, but in my heart, it was never John, Paul, George, and Ringo. It was Brett, Michael, Mark, and David, because Sky Sports, in the long run up to One Night Only, being on Sky Box Office, of course, 15 quid. I think I've said before, my first memories of One Night Only were trying to believe I could make out wrestlers in the black and white lines that were on the screen with a little graphic saying to order, call this number. But ran 4 1-hour-long work to shoot interviews with Brett, with The Undertaker, with Shawn Michaels, with the British Bulldog. Bulldogs was mainly condensed because it was Bulldog, but was used for the video packages of him promoting what it was going to be like to be back working in England, memories of Wembley, all that kind of stuff. But Undertaker's, Brett's, and Shawn's were constant features in the summer of 1997. You can recall Shawn saying things like, "I know what I'm like, I'm controversial." And controversy leads to, well, everything else, referencing kind of how much of a nightmare he was. You've got Brett speaking with all the belts that he'd won in the background, which I know he was accused of being a bit of a mark for, but like, he's proud of his work, proud of his legacy. And The Undertaker's, perhaps most fascinatingly of all, was like in line with how the character had been humanized on television. Yes, he was surrounded by candles. Yes, he was in full gimmick. But because of the revelations that Paul Bearer had unleashed on Raw, he was able to talk about a dark past and about how it kind of made him embrace the creatures of the night and embrace this dark world, but how he's having to become more of a man now. This was released on Coliseum Video a few months later, a 4-hour collection of all the interviews. And it was for us. It really was for the UK audience and Sky Sports, primary, again, to sell a pay-per-view ultimately, but something that for a rare change was actually made with the UK audience in mind before the American one. And what a fabulous bit of content this was.
Yeah, it's innovative, isn't it? It's very, like I say, it's very 1997 as well. I've got big memories of this era and being like, what? Is this them breaking character? What is this? Also being the last person on Earth. I don't think when I was a kid, I put Fab Four together that it was a Beatles reference. I just thought it was just a thing they called these wrestlers. And yes, like I alluded to earlier, it's weird that it's Bulldog and not Austin, but again, he's British, so it's Sky. But it's thinking outside the box. The presentation side of it, which is a bit cringe, away, like the actual substance of it. Like I'm thinking back now, obviously it being 4 hours, I've rewatched all of it for today, but I'm wondering now, did I watch it all at the time when it was at 8 p.m. one day, 2 p.m. the next day? I think they advertised on Sky. Did I actually watch it all? Like I feel like I remember watching the Undertaker one, but as far as the others, I'm not 100% sure I ever have. So I would like you actually to sit down and watch them back, because it's another layer that's peeled back. And you're right, Undertaker just talking in a normal voice is just tells you, what time we're in here in 1987. And like you say, the fact that we're allowed to do this because of the storytelling with Undertaker that year. You couldn't have done it 3 years ago, could you? Like it's really cool stuff, and it comes at, like I say, Shawn hasn't quite killed the town by beating the babyface. It's a very hot time for UK fans, and it'd only get hotter. Wish they'd done it again.
I think as mad as it is to say, by the summer of 1997, we've joked before about the fact that the Hall of Fame always had to feature your Pedro Moraleses and the like, because they couldn't actually use the ones you wanted to talk about because they were all on Nitro. I think the reason Bulldogs featured here over someone like an Austin is because at this point, they're talking about their most present legacy players. They can't mention Hogan. They can't mention, Andre's past. They can't mention Warrior because of everything that happened in 1996. Brett, Shawn, The Undertaker, and to a lesser extent, but for the benefit of this narrative, Davey Boy Smith are their living legend figures, as mad as that is to say in 1997. But they're not that mad really, because soon enough, 3 of them would be gone and The Undertaker would continue to be the legacy guy. So it's strange how things work out, isn't it?
It's very interesting. It just made me think as well, though, like I say, this coming at such a hot time in the UK. anytime we talk about UK fans, it's always like we're behind, isn't it? It's like, the Hogan era is in the 80s, but our boom's like 1992, 1993, when the bloom was very much off the rose in America. Like, I want John Lister or somebody to, like, I'm sure he squeezed the numbers before. Are we early? Were we actually, did the Attitude Era start here? Was the boom period already starting in 1997 in the UK? Because, as we're going to talk about in the pay-per-view review, business has absolutely not turned around yet, and TV ratings haven't turned around yet in the US. I wonder if there's evidence out there that, like, we're just ahead of the game here without multing the crowd out at one night only, and, like, say, Sky thinking outside of the box here, and how hot things felt in 1997. There's a reason we all have that affinity for 1997. I wonder.
Maybe. You might be right, there might be one case for the evidence against you, and that is, at this point, every single thing that Stone Cold Steve Austin is doing. So let's talk about it, because I think we've had, like, as my friend would say, Adam Wilborn on our podcast, like, we've eaten our vegetables. It's time to get to the good stuff, because the month of September in Stone Cold Steve Austin's life is a month kind of unlike any we've covered so far for the Texas Rattlesnake, as he was nicknamed for the first time in this month. We came off Ground Zero, where he'd stunned Jim Ross in surrendering his tag team title. Drop and give me 20, he said to Slaughter as he threw that belt on the floor. Well, it was about to get much worse for the commissioner. Raw opens with Slaughter coming out and, getting booed for, basically forcing Austin to surrender the belt. And Vince McMahon saying, look, everything's gotten really out of hand. Slaughter warns the entire locker room that there will be law and order, whether the wrestlers like it or not, whether the officials like it or not, or whether the fans like it or not. There is a lot of boos. They're allowing... Slaughter's kind of a shades of grey character at the moment because of him trying to deal evenly with everybody. But in this segment in particular, they're allowing him to be the heel. The second he even name checks Steve Austin, the mere mention of Austin gets an absolute monster pop. But then Slaughter cuts that off and he says, well, he was out of line last night, and that gets more boos. Austin will now stay suspended until the doctors say he can come back. This is a tonal shift from Slaughter kind of trying to be on Austin's side the prior month. Now things have changed. But that stunner to Jim Ross, things have shifted. He says, when doctors say he can come back and when I say he can come back, that's when Steve Austin can come back. There are massive Austin chants drowning him out at the moment. Slaughter then says, and you surrendered the tag title last night, you're going to surrender the Intercontinental title next. There's going to be a tournament to crown the new champion that's going to end at Bad Blood in your house. He can barely finish the promo for the Austin chants, and he says, and Steve Austin, you will come to Bad Blood to surrender your title. Have I made myself clear? Glass smashes. Austin comes out. Monster pop. Jim Ross sounds like legitimately frightened on commentary after what happened to him the night before. Austin shoves a cameraman out of the way as he goes to, at this point, take the corners, as would become his familiar entrance, gets the massive pop in every corner of the ring. He stares down Sergeant Slaughter. I just want to stop and pay credit to his look here. He's in the blue denim shorts, the tucked in Austin 316 shirt. He's got the Intercontinental title. This is the perfect quintessential our Steve before he became the entire world's. I couldn't get over how perfect this Austin looked. And again, as we've touched on before, he's not even needing to put the trunks and boots on, is he? It was this he needed more than anything else. You can feel the difference in the air. Austin immediately calls Slaughter a jackass. Vince asks for a little bit of respect, and Austin says, I don't respect anybody in this ring. That's an order. That's an order. The only thing you've been ordering, Sarge, is a bunch of cheeseburgers. Huge pop. Austin says he's not getting paid enough to be off injured. He won't deliver a title, but he'll deliver a can of whoop ass. Do I make myself clear? And then he just drills Slaughter with the Stone Cold Stunner, does some press ups, does some chin ups. Vince doesn't really know what to do as he stood there just bollocking him. He throws the microphone away, and for a split second, it looks like he wants to swing for Austin, but instead, he just decides discretion is the better part of valor, and he slides out the ring. Austin commandeers commentary for a bit. He eventually leaves. The officials, the refs, Vince McMahon just do not know how to deal with this new problem they have in Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin goes through the crowd. There is adoration for this man. This, more than any other night we've covered. I think we've been honest enough in our appraisals of these reactions that Austin's been getting as he's been walking down the ring for these matches, as he's been entering on these roles where sometimes things are a little bit louder for the likes of, I don't know, Ahmed Johnson or Shawn Michaels or The Undertaker. Not anymore. This is the proper shit. There has been a flicking of the switch, and we're kind of going to get into more of it as we go. But from this one onwards, it's just undeniable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like that Pavlovian response to the glass smash has started now, hasn't it? It's not always consistent. Maybe when we get to the paper, we can talk about that as well. But like, this wasn't happening even when we were hot on the character, 3 months ago before this, 4 months before this. You're absolutely right. And it's very interesting, like the dynamic of this as well. It's like I think we've mentioned it before, but Sergeant Slaughter having to like play situational, sometimes babyface, sometimes heel. Very much like the establishment as the heel here that we're going to get to it, but they haven't quite put together what part of that establishment really ultimately should be the heel. But like, it's so interesting seeing the difference here to the way he has to play the character, like you say, when he's in there with actual heels. But it's just, again, he's still my Stevie, and I haven't quite turned on him as a young smart mark, because like DX, it is cool watching him kind of push past Sergeant Slaughter and, like you say, do the sit-ups and the press-ups and all of that stuff. Like that little tinge of comedy that's still there is great. I'm going onto the desk and all of that stuff, and the crowd grabbing hold of him and stuff like that. He's just chewing scenery. He's so entertaining, and yeah, it really is like we are at peak Steve now. Like we're absolutely in the midst of it.
He's back out briefly later in the show to kind of set up what's going to happen next week. It's Goldust versus Owen Hart, and Goldust does one too many low blows because he's so pissed off with the Harts, because of their relationship with Brian Pillman. He gets himself disqualified, so the Harts just come in. All of them just batter Goldust, but then out of the crowd, a bit of earlier 97 Austin Law, just with a broom in his hand as if it's the first thing that he's grabbed. Always love that. Like, hits the ring with a broom, batters all three of them, and then he leans over the ropes. The Hearts have powdered, and he leans over the ropes and he threatens Vince McMahon specifically with it. Vince stands up, tries to be all defensive, throws his headset off, and then almost seems to realize what he's done and kind of just is frozen in a little bit of fear of like, oh God, have I called him out here? What's going on? Austin doesn't take his eyes off Vince in that moment, and he kind of gives him that one of these days. Ultimately, he's harassed to leave him through the crowd, and Jim Ross notes, hang on, Steve Austin's even more dangerous without his wrestling license, and you can just feel like the ideas and the creativity starting to buzz with what they now have with Austin versus maybe a certain ceiling to what they had before. We go to the September the 15th edition of Raw, which is a week later, and Vince McMahon has curiously no-showed. So Jerry Lawler is the one required to hit the ring. Austin cuts a promo from the back, and Lawler says, well, Owen Hart apparently has got a big surprise for you, but Austin is not bothered. He comes out, gets another enormous pop. Watch this entrance back, September the 15th, 1997, if people aren't watching along with us. Austin is so popular, and this is the only time I can remember this happening before the fans kind of get the shit together. That loud pop that greets Austin's music happens in stereo with a chant, Austin, Austin, Austin. He's walking to the ring, getting a pop while other fans just chant his name. And you never get that with Austin's entrance because it kind of gets split into two, doesn't it? But he's so popular. I think people are just thrilled to have him. So yeah, he's so over. This is just totally exhilarating. Jerry Lawler is sucking up to Austin, like going back to what happened to Jim Ross, laughing about him. Thought it was really funny when he stunned Jim Ross at Ground Zero. Really funny when he stunned Slaughter. And he's saying, hey, you know what? If it's up to me, I think Vince McMahon deserves a stunner. Austin, again, I think you've noted this before, little important tweaks about who this is as a man. We talk about how he let Dude Love hold him back at Ground Zero. Here he says, to be honest, Jim Ross was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's all you need, isn't it? That's all you need to be like, it's nothing. Like, don't trust the rattlesnake, but I wasn't being a cunt, that's me being me. And that's crucial, And he says, but as you mentioned it, if Vince was here, I'd be dropping him on his ass. Just like I'll drop Owen Hart and the entire stupid Hart family. The Harts feel called out, so they appear on the stage. Brett calls Austin and the crowd hosers and says he's waited a long time to say that. He's got that little glint in his eye. Oh, Brett. He says, we've all had enough of Austin. And Owen explains as a little legal eagle walks to the ring. This little skinny fella in a suit serves Austin a temporary restraining order of 100 feet. He's got to keep his distance from Owen Hart. Austin trying to read this piece of paper in the ring, and Jerry Lawler keeps leaning over his shoulder to read as he's going. And Austin just spots his moment. Wham! Stunner, takes Lawler down, boots the crown into the aisle. And Austin just leaves, not even taking his eyes off the papers he's reading while Lawler's selling the stunner in the ring. Jim Ross is quite pleased that Lawler got stunned. It's almost if it's forgiven what happened to him at Ground Zero. And he's saying out loud, who's going to be the next one to get a stunner? Could it be Vince McMahon? Could it be you? As he looks down the camera, me? What have I done? Well, just this idea that Austin is permanent chaos. Later in the night, he goes close to the ring while Owen's in the ring, causing Owen to lose to the Patriot as he tears up the paper right in front of Owen. Owen jumps up, orders the police to arrest Steve Austin, and they chase him to the back. Austin and the police will become a theme as we go here. Anything on this before we get to the Garden? Like, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah. Just a couple of notes there. The "it could be you" is very The Simpsons pills, isn't it? The camera pulls away.
Yes.
And Lenny going, "Me? What did I do?" It's very much that, isn't it? Like, but I was gonna say, as far as like the elements here, like clearly somebody's got it written down. All right, Steve can't wrestle, so we'll need to do some stunner segments. So Vince will build to that. Jim Ross, Lawler can take one. As soon as I saw him in the ring, I was like, "Oh, we know what's coming here." Sarge has already been done. It's Lawler's turn, but just a little thing of like Steve kicking the crown away after he does the stunner. It's so important, isn't it? That's where I think you get the guttural cheer from 13-year-old me, just loving watching like this Steve Austin character. There's just something about those little things that Steve throws into these segments that are brilliant. And I was going to say, on like the restraining order, we'll get to it, obviously. But yeah, I feel like 100 feet becomes 20, becomes 10, becomes basically the ring to the commentary desk. But whatever, it's wrestling. It's fine. It was a real lawyer there, honestly.
It's September 22nd, 1997, and we are in the Garden. And we've talked about Owen Hart beating, inverted commas, Brian Pillman to make it to the final of the IC title tournament. And then as he's celebrating breathlessly, "I did it, I won," kind of mimicking his old celebrations, Austin strikes. He risks getting arrested. Owen's in the middle of dedicating the tournament to his fans, and you see Austin just behind him. Goes for Owen, sorry. The cops just swarm him. Austin stops just short of actually striking one of the police. And at this point, that's too much for Vince McMahon to bear on commentary. He hits the ring with a microphone. He's just saying, no. He's trying to back the police off politely, but he screams at Austin. He says, "What's the matter with you?" Austin's like backing off from the police, and Vince says, "Just give me a minute. And the police sort of step away for a second, and Vince is just like almost like fatherly in tone to Austin at this point. Says, "What's the matter with you? Get a hold of yourself. Look at you. You've been forced to forfeit the tag title, the Intercontinental title. Everybody understands why you're upset. They understand that you're upset with not competing, but don't break the law. Like, you understand why you're not allowed to compete. Can't you get it through your head? The doctors say you're not ready. You could injure yourself for good. You could wind up paralyzed. And the WWF is not going to let you do that to yourself. Steve, these people don't want you to end up in a wheelchair." And like, it sort of hits Austin all at once. He's kind of like doing surrender cobra. He's got like his hands over his head. The sweat is pouring off him. The whole thing is so intense. He's wearing like that new black robot Stone Cold t-shirt, but you can like see the sweat.
I want that t-shirt so bad. Like, I literally went on Shopee in Vietnam looking for it. Found a few Austin 316 ones for about £3. American flag one, all kinds. Couldn't find a big oversized one of them. I want it.
Quick one on that, by the way. How fucking brilliant a worker is Steve Austin? Because the only segment he doesn't wear the Austin 316 shirt for, knowing that everybody's bought one of them, he picks this segment and this segment alone to try the new one on, because he knows the eyes of the world are about to be on this specific segment. So Austin's like kind of starting to pace and you can tell he's actually taking in what Vince is saying, but he's just starting to get more and more and more wound up. He says, "Listen, like, Steve, like, don't you realize that people in the WWF, we care. All of these fans, these people here, they care. We care, and we've just got to go with it. In other words, Steve, you've just got to work within the system." Sort of like a mixed response for this, because the fans agree. They care about Steve Austin, but they want Austin to be Austin. They want it to be wild. They want it to be untamed. And Austin takes the microphone, and in like kind of the most profound words he's said so far as a character in WWF, like almost lifting himself out of every other story with the Hearts and all the rest of it. He's just looking dead at Vince. He says, "You know as well as I do, Vince, that this is what I do for a living. This is all that I do. And can't nobody say I'm not the best in the damn world." Vince kind of goes to say something, says, "Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. You sit here and you tell me to work within the system. You're not the one sitting at the house." And then he kind of like trails off thinking about how miserable he is when he's sat at the house. But he says, "You know what? I feel like Cool Hand Luke. I'll work within your stupid system." Again, there's a bit of a mixed reaction. And he says, "I appreciate the fact that you and the World Wrestling Federation care. I also appreciate the fact that, hell, you can kiss my ass." And he hits Vince McMahon with a stinker of a stone cold stunner where Vince float fishes over Steve's shoulder, but it doesn't fucking matter one bit, does it? Jim Ross on commentary, unbelievable. Oh God, oh my God. At this point, the police are obviously finally free to arrest Austin, not for the stunner, but for the restraining order. But it looks like they're arresting him for daring to lay hands on the owner of the World Wrestling Federation. Jerry Lawler, still pissed off from last week. Send him to jail. Send him directly to jail. Give him the chair. Austin's in cuffs. They've managed to recreate that iconic shot from Canadian Stampede, but now do it on Raw and apply it to an entirely different situation. Chest puffed out. Brand new T-shirt on display, available at WWF shop. Jim Ross is saying Austin is going directly to jail and Vince McMahon is out. You get that famous chant, he doesn't give a damn, that like you can just hear in your head when you're seeing like Austin videos years later. Both commentators are certain he's going to get fired. Never mind go home for bad blood. This is as good a go home angle for the September 29th edition of Monday Night Raw as you're ever going to get. Everybody's covered it. Everybody said it's iconic. They're not wrong.
Yeah, go home for the attitude era is what this is really. Like, it's just, it's everything being set up here, isn't it? Like I said, you hear people talk about this though and be like, oh, it's the first time Vince is, going into next week's segment, references the owner of the, no, it's not. Like, we covered it multiple times, but it's fucking right in your face here, obviously, and the line's been tiptoed on, stepped over at certain points, but, we're absolutely past the line here when it comes to it. But I've just got to say, like, everyone said everything about it. Iconic, incredible, what a segment, like, what a great, like, angled vehicle for Steve, all of that stuff. But you're absolutely right. Like, the stunner cell is every bit as bad as you remember. But I think that's just true of all of these, isn't it? Like, none of them are good at taking it. Like, Slaughter, even Lawler's not great. JR's not great. Like, I remember at the time it becoming like, oh, it's going to be funny. How's this next fat old man going to take the stunner? And it's just, it's all parts of the charm of it, isn't it? But it is also interesting because I feel like if me or you got in there, like, I think we could both take a stunner, like, you know what I mean? Like, we both know how to take it to certain things as a wrestling fan, and it's so interesting. Like, someone like a Vince McMahon didn't know, like, you probably want to go sideways rather than roll over like it's a snapmare. Maybe don't do that, Vince. But obviously, I read the thing about this that, like, apparently, like, as soon as the cameras are off, Vince has just stood up, no selling the stunner as well. It's like, if he doesn't get that either after being around so long, I don't know. There's various things about that, like, if having to be told by, like, Pat Patterson, sell a bit more, Vince, come on, because his real life pride's getting in the way. Like, I guess even being that close to the business, you still don't fully get it.
No, it's incredible. It's I think you're right. I think like the daft selling of the various people, it does sort of tell its own story of the people that Austin is now interacting with. He's taken out Office. There's another day for wrestlers. He's going for the head of WWF, but he's going for everybody around that table. Very easy to picture the table at the top of Titan Tower, isn't it? And Austin working his way through one by one. And to that point, the go-home angle for Bad Blood with Austin is the follow-up. What is Vince McMahon going to do? Like, the kind of the world is watching and waiting for the decision. And the kind of setup for this Raw is that tonight Steve Austin finally has to face the music. Austin enters, and like Lawler is heckling Vince McMahon from commentary before he's even gotten into the ring. Austin goads Vince McMahon into the ring, and like Vince is like, you don't give a damn, so I'm not going to give a damn either. No more chaos. It stops right now. Vince gives Austin 3 options. He says, number 1, bring your doctor's certificate, say you're cleared, we're fine. Number 2, you return, but if you do so, you absolve the WWF of any responsibility if you get injured again. And then, like, with proper, like, well-performed regret, he says, like, an option 3 is termination. Austin again kind of like channels the guy from last week. He's saying, like, look, I know my neck better than any doctors. Bring a piece of paper. Maybe I'll sign it, or maybe I'll just shove it straight up your ass. Why don't you just fire me and then I'll beat your ass? They have a little bit of afters, like, between them in the tension. Austin agrees that he will go to Bad Blood, and like the chemistry between them, like, is so rich. Like, Austin flips Vince off to his face, gives him that middle finger to the face for the first time, and Vince just looks like so stressed and gotten to. It is fascinating to me that, like, obviously we're going to get to it soon, but not that much, we don't think. When Vince does the Brett screwed Brett promo, he really believes this is going to absolve him of the blame of Montreal. He can go back to being a babyface commentator, because how is he not watching his own show and seeing what they have between them, even here? Like, wait, Vince isn't taking that Black Roy's war jacket off for another couple of months, but it's all here, isn't it? You can see that this is going to be where the money is. It's like, it's no different to seeing romantic chemistry on television or the best feuds on wrestling television. It's as early as right now, seeing these two react to one another as characters.
It's funny, like from segment to segment, like on the last one, I'm kind of criticizing Vince's hubris that makes him not sell it when the cameras go up. It's Vince's hubris that's actually where you get that glimmer. When Vince is in Austin's face and is kind of not taking his bullshit, that's the most Mr. McMahon you kind of see in these segments. Outside of that, he's playing it differently, isn't he? He's playing it as the good old sports broadcaster that just, is genuinely trying to look out for Steve and trying to do the right thing for him despite everything. But it's those little glimmers, isn't it, that really give you an indication of where the money is. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's staring them right in the face. I've got to say, like, the one thing I did note, like, watching this back, though, like, the 3 options he gives Steve, like, is it a plot hole? But, like, why wouldn't he just pick option 2? For, like, option 2, like, you get to come back. You get to decide. Isn't that what he wants? You get to decide when you come back and you sign away all liability. Where's the negative? Like, where's the drama? Because very clearly that's the option Steve should pick. But I guess it's still wrestling at the end of the day.
The contrast between Vince and basically every other wrestler, I guess, is laid bare in the last segment where it's almost like WWE have to remember, oh shit, there's like an Owen Hart element to this that we should probably like water that plant. Owen debuts the Owen 316 shirt alongside his brand new theme, which I know everybody hated, but I quite like. Bit of a guilty pleasure.
I was shocked it was this early. I had memory hold that. I had Mandela affected that as, he starts using that when he comes back as the Blackheart. That's something from December of 1997. I honestly I think there's one of the clips that we watched, it was the old theme was dubbed and it was very obviously dubbed. Maybe it's a network thing. Because I did think, what song are they using there if the dubbing is, his old Owen Hart theme? And then I realised the next week, fucking hell. Yeah, he's already using it, eh?
Yeah, he's got it. And he's like, he's really pleased with his new shirt. He does the little turnaround, I just broke your neck, the whole deal. He's also flanked by SWAT team members to protect himself. So, that kind of makes sense. He says he tells Vince he's not going to make a mistake like he did at SummerSlam. It's a bit stumbo bumbo, it's a bit robotic, but like he says, it's bugging him that Austin's a lunatic and he's trying to ruin his life. He only wants Austin around at Bad Blood to hand over the Intercontinental title. He talks about the stunners and he says, Vince, you should fire him. How could you let him come in and destroy what your father built? And he's trying to like play to Vince's comparison. He says, maybe after Bad Blood, you think about firing him again. And Vince like sort of goes to leave the ring. Owen just takes a moment with the fans, and then the camera pans back, and it turns out that all along one of Owen's SWAT team members was Steve Austin in disguise, in the very same police SWAT gear that he was like being dragged away in the prior week. He hits a stunner. He's on Owen this time. He slides out the ring and once again back out into the crowd, and the fans block the other police from getting to Austin as if to like illustrate like kind of Austin has become, there's a bit, it's like DDP to this, isn't there, considering it was 1997. He's become the man of the people now, fighting against the bigger, badder machine. And there is something quite nice that the last stunner in this month of stunners was saved for Owen Hart right before kind of he has no choice but to hand him the IC title potentially at Bad Blood, even though I think we can both agree that kind of Owen's become like a B character in what is technically his own storyline.
You stole the words right from my mouth. Exactly. That's watching it. It's like Steve's above this now, isn't he? He's past this. I think both as a character though, and in real life too, because there is like, even when Owen's showing off the t-shirt and it's got the fucking, the catchphrase on the back, I don't think Steve likes it. I think the real Steve really doesn't like it. Like, fast forward to the pay-per-view. Like, I don't think he wants to work with Owen after, what's happened obviously with the real life stuff with the neck. But like, as a character too, you're right. It really is kind of beneath him at this point and almost like box ticking, isn't it, really? Because Owen is so much lower in the card when he's not around Steve. He's teaming with Davey or he's doing something else mid-card, isn't he? Like, yeah, Steve is ready to move up from this.
And that's it. And we are ready for Bad Blood and the Intercontinental title tournament final, which we will get to in our preview of that card. It's been quite the couple of months for the WWE. Well, I'll say the couple of months, the couple of weeks between Ground Zero and Bad Blood. It just feels like a couple of months.
A year, this. In 1995, this would be a year's worth of storylines.
I have some good news for you, Benno, because we'll keep it light before we get out of yet another Monster Housekeeping edition, because we're going to go to our 5-star review. For those that are listening to this podcast for the first time, I can tell you with some confidence at this point, Housekeepings will typically be this long, but as a bit of a thank you for sticking with us here on Benno and Hamflett, and for helping us get up the podcast charts and gaming the algorithm and all that sort of stuff, if you leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast app it is that you use, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, and in the comments box, leave a request for us to review something. If it can be outside of obviously the stories that we're covering here on Benno and Hamflett in your house, whether that be from the new generation, from the nascent attitude era that we're about to step into, or any period of wrestling that you like, we will cover it. And we try and look for ones that maybe tie into the stuff that we're talking about as well. And we've got a bit of a doozy this month because it's a bit of a flash forward into like the dim and distant future for Benno and Hamflett in your house. But it takes something from what we've covered here. Madison Square Garden, obviously the spiritual home of the World Wrestling Federation. And they'd be back there for SummerSlam 1998. You can scarcely believe that what we're looking at here is 12 months on from the stuff that we're covering here in 1997. But we're not going to talk about the highway to hell, because Padzox on Apple Podcasts, thank you very much for your request. He said, the perfect dive into an era some people might call the Dark Ages, but I would call an absolute nostalgia fest. The perfect mix of insight, humor, and piss-taking. Thank you very much, Padzox. And thank you for requesting this. Because I'm a huge fan of terrible matches, I'd love to hear your take on Kaientai versus the Oddities from SummerSlam 1998. Padzox's words, not mine. Quite possibly the best wrestling match to ever take place at Madison Square Garden. Well, let's find out, shall we, Benno? Because often Netflix we go. And I say Netflix on purpose because it jumps straight to Kaientai's entrance, because the entire Insane Clown Posse obviously were not getting paid for a single performance outside of this SummerSlam one. It's entirely edited at the beginning and the end of this match.
Devastating.
Ruthlessly. You can find it online. The ICP sing them out. The Oddities get a massive reaction in Madison Square Garden. The theme, super popular at the time.
Theme was incredible. Like it was genuinely. I'm the rap fan of the podcast, but I'm not saying ICP, great rappers. It literally is a great feel good song. I was so excited to hear it watching this back. I couldn't find it other than a clip version on WWE.com and Facebook. I couldn't find a longer version, so that's the only bit that you could potentially call part of a match of Madison Square Garden history. Because the match that followed, maybe not quite as good as the song.
I tell you what, they might not have known how magnets worked, but they knew how the wrestling business did, because this got over, and it got them over. And over is the only word I can really use to describe this, because I've got my notes and I'll recap everything that happens over the next 60 seconds or so. But just believe me when I say everything that happened in this total shitfest was over. Capital O. Over in Madison Square Garden. So if nothing else, it's got that. Basically, the entire match is just Kaientai little, the Oddities are massive. What are we going to do about it? Taka Michinoku starts with Golga, which is just interesting because that's Taka Michinoku versus Earthquake. And it's almost like you lift that mask off and that's a weird coming together of two worlds. But Earthquake's great in this, as Golga. Cell's getting thrown into the turnbuckle, pinballs the heels around as the ICP and Luna kind of patrol the floor. Golga steals Yamaguchi-san's shoe, puts a drink in it, and then throws the drink on Yamaguchi-san. Kurgan tags in, who gets on his knees to fight Funaki and then still easily dominates him. Nobody's in wrestling gear, I should point out. You've got the Oddities in all their wacky sort of charity shop clothes, and you've got Kaientai in their hoodies and their denim shorts, rather than the blue and white Michinoku Pro gear. They all just bump around for Kurgan the same way they did as Golga. Kurgan goes to Yamaguchi-san, and there's a human tug of war where Kaientai are trying to pull Yamaguchi-san into the ring while Kurgan pulls him to the floor just to embarrass him. In tags Giant Silver. All four members of Kaientai run away, make a plan on the floor, and then Taka tags back in. But then he bails, who tags Dick Togo, who bails and tags Taka back in. They try together to get anything on Giant Silver, and all four of Kaientai actually climb up him, and he still just pushes them away, and they all bounce around like pinballs for him. He throws all four of them into a corner, like Irish whip one after another, just so he can do like a butt splash, which doesn't really work because he's massive, but he's not like a fat guy wrestler. But they take the bump all the same. More bumps as they get whipped into the opposite corner. Taka gets press slammed by Silver, which is just interesting to look at because you can see like how much pressure Taka is putting on Giant Silver's shoulders to stay up there. But Giant Silver's so
posting,
big.
We call that in the business.
Posting, yeah, that was the word. I didn't have that in my notes, but it looks super impressive, doesn't it? Because of how high he's got him in, because Taka's at like full extension with the arms. Like he gets thrown onto the rest of Kaientai on the floor. Golga gets the trademark earthquake power slam and elbow. How did I not realize straight away that this man was Golga? That mask was too effective for its own good. Men's Teo and Funaki get a double Irish whip, and they actually all get an advantage on Golga for a second. They do like their rapid fire. Basically, they're allowed 2 or 3 Kaientai spots. So they all hit the running elbows super quick. They do the seated drop kick that the Motor City Machine Guns would later steal. So they all do like the big pose over the top of Golga. But Golga eventually fights back in a spot that I can never recall seeing. You get 2 either side of a double clothesline, so it becomes a quadruple clothesline. Like taking out all 4 members of Kaientai at the same time. Golga tags Kurgan, but it's not really a hot tag because this has been too easy. The crowd aren't hot because the result has never been in doubt at any point. Kurgan hits a sidewalk slam. They once again try to do 4-on-1. The referee just lets it happen because they've been taking such a kick in. There's no point even getting in the middle. Yamaguchi tries to interfere. This time Luna takes care of that. It's 2 big men with double choke slams, and then Golga, like all the heels get lined up into a row, and then Golga just falls forward onto all 4, literally pinning all 4 members for the 1, 2, 3. Again, like not a lot to say other than actually saying what happened, but you can't deny how popular the whole thing was.
Yeah, it was a good lap altogether. Like, you know, sit there, like seeing Earthquake in this setting obviously is always jarring. And it's mad because you're right. You know, I think I knew, like, I was a Power Slam reader at that point, so I was aware that was
that's what clued me in.
Who it was. But he just looked like just for lack of a better term, a fat bloke in like a t-shirt that doesn't fit him, and a Cartman doll that's very 1998. Like it's mad how well it kind of fits as well, and it's cool. It's good that, you know, they give him some work as well, you know, because he's done with WCW as well, and he's always seems one of the nice blokes in the business, and you can't imagine a legitimate Earthquake gimmick working, you know, SmackDown dark match aside in the WWF in this period as well. But you forget Luna Vachon as well. That's another one, like another. Like it feels like as we often say, 35 years ago, but both, you know, relics of that early 90s, you know, Fed period that was the other boom for us as kids as well. But yeah, as a match, there's not much there. Like Kaientai, I always had a soft spot for Kaientai. They're very entertaining. Like I always loved you mentioned there, like that them there as like a foursome. Like I always loved when they came in as like Taka's enemies, and then they formed a stable. It was a great like realization experience when I was playing WCW versus NWO World Tour. Tip for you, if you scroll through like some of the characters, I think on the where there's a few random Japanese wrestlers, I think all 4 members of Kaientai choosable. So it was always cool to get to go Taka Michinoku, Michinoku Driver, Hollywood Hogan. Like it felt like my own little mini invasion that you could do on that game. So that was always cool as well. But it is literally that. It's the 4 of them, you know, trying to, you know, handle the flying and do all the crazy double teaming that they'd obviously do. And we're known for versus like these immovable like blokes who can't really do much. Like when Kurgan looks 3 times the athlete as you, there's not much going on for old Giant Silver, it is there, but he's got a snazzy orange shirt on, and that's like I say, it's a gimmick that like it will blow. Like I say, it's a shame the audio was not on the network/Netflix because they would literally blow the roof off when they came out to that song, and Sable would dance with them badly and all of that stuff. Like you see that massively. They can't do no wrong. It was like a snapshot of the future of what we're gonna see when we get to SummerSlam 1998. Like, no, everyone's over, everything is over, even Giant Silver in a bad orange shirt.
That's it. It whetted my appetite for the things to come, if nothing else. And speaking of that, thank you for sticking with us for this sort of yet another bumper edition of Housekeeping. We'll very quickly preview the Bad Blood card before we get out of here, or at least preview what the Bad Blood card should have been. Obviously, there will be no Brian Pillman versus Dude Love, and we will kind of talk about on the review what kind of happens as a result of that. But elsewhere on this show, the planned match is the Nation of Domination, represented by D'Lo Brown, Common Mustafa, and new member Rocky Maivia, taking on Ken Shamrock and the Legion of Doom. The Headbangers will defend their newly won tag team titles against the Godwins. We've got the final of the Intercontinental title tournament as Owen Hart defends finalist Ahmed John. I'm going to scribble his fucking name out again. Farouk in the final of the Intercontinental title tournament. We've got a tag team flag match between the Patriot and newfound friend Vader versus the British Bulldog and, check my notes, the World Wrestling Federation champion Bret the Hitman Hart. And in the main event of the evening, the titular first ever Hell in the Cell match, it's The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. Bad Blood in your house, coming to the next edition of Benno and Hamflett in your house.
Is it Hell in a Cell? Is it Hell in the Cell? Is it Sex in the City? Is it Sex in a City? We will figure it out when we Sex and the City. We will get there, but yeah, I can't think any of that's going to go any differently than is laid out. But look forward to find it out in real time.
I can't wait, mate. I can't wait. And in the meantime, if you're not completely sick of my voice, you can find it every day at What Culture Wrestling. Search my name, search What Culture Wrestling for daily wrestling reviews. We'll cover Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW Dynamite, all the pay-per-views, all the premium live events. You can get us wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube, where we've got the What Culture Wrestling podcast YouTube channel as well.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, for me, patreon.com/grapple for everything we do, but just search Grapple on your podcast feed and you get our free shows. Obviously, we've got April in the books now, so I'd still say go back, listen to our WrestleMania covers. The Matty Mania audio shows will be very much worth your time. But yeah, coming forward, then in May, we've got a Grapple Pub quiz coming up, which I believe I'm going to be the host. So yeah, look forward to me putting the lads through the paces on everything 1995 and 1996 in your house. The Hamflett part of the quiz, I'm looking very much looking forward to. But obviously, on top of that, we've got episode of Time coming out, AEW Double or Nothing, obviously later in the month, Backlash, plenty to cover on the free feed too. So yeah, check that out if you're a Hamflett guy or What Culture guy and you haven't given Grapple a go. Hopefully, I imagine we fit together quite nicely when it comes to the types of coverage and opinions we have over there too.
Absolutely gets the recommendation from me. Full value for money with that Patreon, and get on their Discord as well. The chat is good, is there, even if you have to throw in the odd grenade in the AW chat once in a while. Benno, I once again appreciate you doing another double Broadway with me as we try and sift through the Raws and the like of 1997. And until next time, thank you for the house.
Good night, all.
Yes, there is.